Alors bonjour, re-bienvenue. On fait l'appel, tous les membres du conseil sont présents. Adoption de l'ordre du jour, motion d'adopter l'ordre du jour tel que présenté. This is moved by Councillor Deakin, seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Call for the vote. All in favor and pass. Thank you. On arrive au numéro 4, sommaire des notes budgétaires 2026, première ébauche.
Monsieur le maire,
Oui.
est-ce qu'il y a des pecuniary
Oui,
interests?
excuse-moi. Déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Je n'en vois pas. Merci. Item 4, sommaire des notes budgétaires 2026, première ébauche, document budgétaire en pièces jointes. Alors, la parole est à vous, M. Godin.
Merci, M. le maire. Je prends 30 secondes. Maisonneuve a envoyé un document fresh off the press à Louis là, pour qu'on puisse passer à travers du sommaire des changements qui ont été apportés suivant les discussions d'hier.
Merci.
Donc, on va vous présenter le sommaire. Ça va donner une idée au conseil où on se situe présentement. On peut avoir des discussions sur ça. Il y a peut-être des clarifications, des échanges qui peuvent avoir lieu. Puis ensuite, on va rentrer dans la liste des demandes de budget pour le public,
Merci.
le comité et le conseil. Donc, ça ne sera pas trop long.
Je les remercie en passant, pendant qu'on attend, remercier l'équipe parce que ces choses-là n'arrivent pas magiquement de hier soir à aujourd'hui sans du travail ajouté de l'équipe. Alors, c'est bien apprécié. Merci. Des petits lutins.
Ça vient d'être fait. Bon.
Alors, si on peut juste l'agrandir un petit peu, enlever peut-être. Oui, c'est ça. Merci beaucoup, M. Savoie.
Donc, voici la liste des ajustements qu'on a faits ce matin, là, après les discussions d'hier. Donc, on a réalisé hier, pendant qu'on présentait le budget, que on avait doublé un 12 000 là, qui était le budget du King Club. On l'avait mis dans son budget, puis on l'avait mis à une autre place aussi. Fait que ça, c'est une réduction de 12 000. On a aussi à rajouter l'ajustement du COLA. Fait que dans le budget 2026, on avait un COLA de 1,8 %. Là, on a appris lundi que le COLA, puis ce COLA-là, c'est le COLA pour 2026. On utilise toujours le COLA de octobre à septembre. Fait qu'on l'a su, c'est ça, lundi. Fait que ça a un impact de 22 000 sur la taxation. Le restant, ça va être sur les user fees. Bon, là, l'ajustement pour la stratégie des pompiers, pour l'ajout des postes. Là, j'ai envoyé un autre tableau ce matin à Louis. OK. Donc, je ne sais pas si, Brian, do you want to explain what we're proposing for this adjustment?
Through you, Your Worship. So the change, what we did was we removed the full-time maintenance position, and we made it the part-time maintenance. So we originally had 16 hours in the budget. We have that 500 hours from the volunteer who's retiring next year. So we included that in to come out to 24 hours a week to have a part-time maintenance person. And that's the adjustment there.
Just a clarification, that is a maintenance person or a firefighter?
Firefighter / maintenance person.
Okay, thank you.
It would be a dual role.
So the impact for...
Just a sec, sorry. Councillor Deakin?
Would that be a part-time job or still volunteer?
Chief?
Your Worship, it would be a part-time position. So right now it's a part-time position at 16 hours. Now that we're changing it to 24, I'm going to have to repost it out to the firefighters as a part-time position with 24 hours, because I don't know if that same person can do 24 hours with his part-time. So.
Okay.
So the impact of these adjustments, instead of being $498,000 like they were yesterday, now it's $433,000, and because
233?
at 433.
So it went down 60,000?
It went down about 60,000. And so the impact on, because you're using the phase-in approach, we were phasing in this increase on 4 years. So instead of having a hit of 0.58% on the taxation, it's going to be a hit of 0.53%. So in the budget, we've had put it 100% of this cost in the budget of 26. So that's why instead of being 498,000, we're reducing this to 108,000. And that's where the savings of 232,000 is. Because we're going to be increasing the taxation of 0.53% for 26, 27, 28, and 29 to cover this strategy.
So yesterday at council, we talked about removing the additional firefighting position and keeping the maintenance position. I just want to make sure that council is comfortable in the direction that this is going. Essentially, we've now got a part-time firefighter, part-time, fully paid firefighter doing the maintenance. And it's at 24 hours instead of what was originally proposed, which would have been 35 hours as a full-timer, correct?
All the fire positions are 40 hours.
40 hours, okay, thank you, Chief. Questions, comments, members of council? Council Lauren?
So essentially, we've added 8 hours to what it was already a current role in the organization.
Chief?
That's correct. So adding the 8 hours and then the adjustment on the salary to the grid of the firefighter grid.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments on this? And just for my clarification, so it sounds great in terms of the benefits for this year, but we're essentially pushing down some of the costs, but those are only related to the part-time positions, correct? Not the part-time positions, but the volunteer firefighter positions, correct?
The volunteer firefighters, we're adding 2 a year.
Yeah.
So in 26, you've got 2, and 27, you'll be at 4. So you see the increase in costs on that line.
Yeah, so that particular move has saved a substantial amount. And the fact that we removed the full-time firefighter hire and tweaked the maintenance and everything else to make it a 24 instead of a 40, reduced it a little bit. So I just need to understand that first year and the impact on the second years. So what the difference there is 400, you said, what was the amount, sorry?
It used to be 498.
Yeah.
But because we've transformed the full-time position as a part-time position, it went down to 433,000. Another adjustment that was done, and it was the fire inspector. Before we had it at Q3, and we had it at Q4, and it
moved it
was
to
asked to bring it to Q3.
Q1, okay.
So-
Okay.
Well, it's at the start of Q3, so at the end of Q2. So that's also adding probably an extra 20,000 in the whole scope of the.
Okay, but this year's strategy, which started at 498, we're at 237 right now. We're using 129 from reserves. Sorry, we're at 237 instead of 498. And 129 is coming from reserves, and that the impact to taxation is 108. From
Yes.
what yesterday was 498 on taxation, correct? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I have Councilor Lauren.
Yeah, but that 498 still had reserves built into it. It wasn't just all on taxation.
Well, yes, no, it wasn't, there was no reserve.
Well,
In the budget of 26?
with the phased-in approach, it had
Yes.
reserves, is what
Yes.
I'm saying.
Yes,
Which is, so apples to this apples, you had the reserves in
Yes.
there as well. So it was a .58 saving, a .58 impact yesterday. Now it's a 0.53 impact.
Yeah.
Because it all factors in reserves as well.
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Bon matin, Charles du Conseil. So just to clarify on that, though, you're right with what you're saying when we're comparing to yesterday's strategy, but in the budget, so in the 8.4%, we were not using those reserves, right? So you really had that 498 impact.
Yes.
Councillor Lawrence?
And that's why there was a 1.82% reduction to the 8.4 if we went with the phased-in strategy using the reserves. So now that number is, what, 1.9?
252, so 1.25.
1.25 instead of 1.82, right? So that's where my head was going. I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on this item? Councillor Deakin?
Just that the chart itself says volunteer firefighter for 2 of the roles at least that I don't think are volunteer firefighters, just to make sure that we're crystal clear on that. The administrative assistant modified role and the fire inspection prevention officer, those are not volunteer positions, correct?
Your
I'm not-
Worship,
yeah,
yeah, so
Chair.
the line should say administrative assistant hyphen firefighter, not volunteer firefighter.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we look at these numbers, members of council, any additional comments? Are we all comfortable at this?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Councillor Deakin?
Just one more question. So the 8 new volunteer firefighter, again, in the HR action plan, that was established, my understanding that we would be aiming for that this year, but the 2, the modified and the fire inspection, were those also in the HR action plan?
Chief?
Your Worship, so in the HR plan was the administrative assistant was there, but not as a firefighter position, just as a straight administrative assistant. The fire prevention officer was in the HR plan, and as a this year item, the administrative assistant was a 2025 unit, which now we're upgrading for 26 with the firefighting responsibilities, and the 8 firefighters was over the 23 to 26 plan.
Okay.
So I think logistically for us, it's still easier to go 2, 2, 2, 2 over the next 4 years with your approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Councillor. All right. Thank you very much. We can move on.
Okay. Now, the other 4 lines are revenues that were removed from the budget after discussion with the, around the 2 arenas of Embrun and Russell. Next line is we're using 50% of the OPP reserve, so that's a saving of 60,000 for the 26 budget. The next line is an increase to $25 per crossing. So going from $17.60, I think, to $25, the budget impact is about 15,000. And the next line is removing the asset requirement, the annual asset requirement for the 4 assets that the rec complex will be replacing. Yes, thank you. And the next line, that's the corporate service, the new strategy to finance the corporate service. So the full strategy was around 630,000, but we've removed the waste and organic user fee from the strategy. So we ended up with a saving of 540,000. So altogether, it represents an adjustment of 910,000. So that équivaut 4.41% of reduction. So we're ending up with a 3.99% increase for the 26 budget.
So I had a discussion with Monsieur Dagenet this morning. I asked him if he worked at Costco before coming up with the 399. But So that's where we're at. Could I just get clarification? I didn't see there, we had made some changes, and I know it's user fee related, so it doesn't necessarily appear on this. In terms of the garbage, was there an impact, not on here, but on the user fees? What's the impact there? I believe Councillor Deacon had proposed to maintain. It's in,
Wait, merci, Mr. Mass. So I think you're referring to the corporate services allocation.
Oh, that's
So
correct, yeah.
There would have been an increase to the waste fees. If it had been in 1 year, I think it was about $15. That was removed from the strategy based on yesterday's discussions. We presented 5 options yesterday. I think based on the discussions, what I understood from council's perspectives is that they were in agreement in principle with the idea of the reallocations, and we were to look at that next year, maybe for all the services, including waste. So given the fact that there seems to be agreement with that principle, and I think the reasoning for not doing the waste increase this year is because there's already a significant increase with the organics and whatnot. The hybrid, we could still potentially apply a hybrid approach to the waste fees over 3 years, but instead of applying it 2026, 27, 28, just applying it 27, 28, that 2 year, the $7 each year. Just an option if we still want to commit or to go forward with that. Just something we're thinking about after the meeting as far as that adjustment. So it would be an opportunity there it would bring in a further reduction, though, to the tax fee of, I want to say 0.5%, around there. So that's something to consider if council wants to entertain that.
so just to clarify, what you're saying here is that there's a possibility of a hybrid motion or a hybrid approach where in 26 there is no impact on garbage collection fees, but in 27 and 28 we would see that impact per year of $7.
Exactly.
And so this year that impact would have been covered by reserves?
By the reserve, yeah.
By the
exactly.
reserve.
Because the 3-year phase-in with the hybrid approach was covered, those differences are covered by reserves. And the reason I do bring it up is because I felt like the consensus was that we want to move forward with
No
it,
impact.
but that we
yeah.
don't want to impact the 2026 year, so that might be a way to
Okay,
move around
so just before I give the table, so just to confirm my understanding, you're kind of alluding to about 0.5%? Is that accurate, Monsieur Dagenet? Yeah, okay, so right now, just for everyone to know, so we're talking about the difference between a 349 and 399, and I'll just pass that on to council. Councillor Deacon?
Yeah, I just want to make 2 points on this and ask for clarification on one. So this is not kicking the can down the road. This is about how we fund a service, whether it's, and specifically the internal corporate services of how, as an internal service, how that's delivered to waste and organic waste users. So to me, this is not shirking a fiscal responsibility to another year. This is simply revisiting it in a year when there isn't such a sticker shock already likely to happen by users of that program. The second thing that I wanted to ask clarification on was we were talking about reserves being applied yesterday, and during that discussion, my understanding was that daycare and water and sewer were cushioned, but that the waste was not cushioned by a reserve. So just to be crystal clear on that, because I might be hearing something differently now.
Yeah, thank you. Monsieur Godet?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question, because that's not exactly what was meant by that. I think there are reserves for all of those departments. What I think is the message is more that if we take water and sewer, for example, the revenues and like the updates that we did to the model and seeing that we have more growth than anticipated and the savings in the water loss, it's not the reserves necessarily that's removing that need to impact the rates. It's the fact that we don't need to increase the budget to be able to cover that, right? Those savings are covering those increases. So it's a net zero, so we don't need to increase the fees. Similar to daycare, because right now, if you look at the daycare budget, you're gonna see there's a surplus and we're putting money into reserve. So we don't need to put that money into reserve. That surplus is able to absorb the additional costs from the corporate services alignment. Whereas waste is not in a position where they have a surplus. So any additional cost that we're putting to waste is going to require an increase in the user fee. I don't know if that's clear or not.
But Councillor Deakin was kind of referring to the reserve you mentioned for the first year to offset that $7.
Yeah.
And you're saying there is none?
There is a reserve.
Okay,
What I'm saying is the department isn't in a surplus situation in 2026. We're
Okay.
not putting into reserve, but we have put into reserve in the past.
So,
so just to clarify, my understanding now is that if we were to adopt this hybrid, where the first year sticker shock, as Councillor Deakin mentioned, would have been could be absorbed by a reserve,
Yep.
and therefore the following 2 years would have that $7 increase
Yep.
per year
Yep.
per household. And that would allow us to go down to 3.49 if that was the direction of council.
Exactly.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Deakin?
yeah, this is great. I'm glad that we're talking this through, and I'm thinking differently about it now that I know that that there won't be a direct amount added to the user fee this year for the waste and the organic related to this strategy. The only last comment I want to give is that we need to be very clear on what this strategy is, how it's impacting the potential taxation here, and to be really clear with folks that this is not 100% win. This is more about internal strategy, valuation of internal services, and for those who are not users, for example, of daycare or building permits, et cetera, that this is a net positive for them. So it's all about fairness, it's all about transparency and how we're funding the corporate services aspect of the work. So I just want to be really clear that communicating that well, I recognize will likely be a challenge, but I think it's a very important one to take on.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lauren?
In light of the new information regarding that reserve, I feel comfortable making that adjustment back up to the 600 and whatever thousand, which would allow for the approximate 0.5 reduction to the taxation for this year.
Any other members of council thoughts on this as we kind of mull this over? Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Laurent's comments. I'm just wondering, we've now been taking money from reserves to cushion several things. We don't have a plan to build those reserves back up, do we? In case we have to cushion them, say, in 2029. Will we have something to do that at that time, or are we making it look good right now, but ultimately we'll have a problem down the line?
Sure, Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. I'll just, if Mr. Desjardins has anything to add, I'll let him speak afterwards. I'll speak to the waste one that's a new recommendation. And before making that recommendation, we did take the time to look at the reserve balances and where we're at. And we did feel like there's I think $800 or so thousand dollars into that reserve. And that reserve, there's no specific plan to say, oh, in this year we're going to put X amount in reserves. But the way that reserve works is for all the user fee department reserves, when they do have a surplus, money goes back into there. And when there's a deficit, if there is, it comes out of there. So that's how it's been built and got up to that level. If I'm not mistaken, applying the phase in here is going to remove about maybe $300 or $400, not 400, but I think it's $200,000 or $300,000 from that reserve. So we're going from 800 to 500, which we feel can be absorbed, especially given that through our yearly budgeting, we rarely budget for a deficit. When we do have increased costs, we typically increase the budget and ask for adjustment to fees.
Monsieur Godin, just to clarify for myself, so normally on operating reserves, because we're discussing operating reserves, right, not asset management reserves, but operating reserves, the idea behind it is when it's user fees, any reserve there has to be used specifically related to that area, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, and so that's where I think it's a good idea. This particular strategy makes sense to me absolutely as well. So, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Monsieur Godin. Any other comments on that potential move? So, Monsieur Dagenet?
We updated the chart, and now the new increase in taxation for the 26 budget is 3.53.
Pas habitué de voir parler tant que ça, M. Godin. Après vous.
Merci, Mr. Mayor. There was one other adjustment on the chart that I would just wanted to touch on quickly, mainly because it was brought by administration through the budget brief with the different strategies. And it's the idea of using the OPP reserve to cover the increases. And I just want to be completely transparent and open, and I want council to understand the impacts of using that is, this one is kind of, it's going to put us in a situation where we will have to, like if we're using $60,000 to cover this year, we will be in a situation down the line where we will have to increase by 60,000. So this one is pushing it to another year. So that's one where if council doesn't feel the need to go down to 3.4 or 3.5, what we just said, I would recommend that we keep those funds, maybe for a future project that we need for public safety or otherwise. But that's just, I just wanted to share that, my perspective on that one.
So just a clarification for members of council. Monsieur Dagenet, maybe you can help walk us through this, but last year OPP had an increase for us here to 2.8.
Yes.
Yeah, 2.8 million. They gave us a lump sum last year, roughly $500,000.
Yeah, well, 400,000.
Yeah, 400,000 and change. We, as a council, decided to use a good part of it, remain with 120,000 remaining to kind of cushion that impact. Having said that, this year, OPP is telling us the maximum increase from last year's amount is going to be 11% across all municipalities. That's the maximum. There may be some that will have it less, but their goal is to meet that requirement that right now we're not meeting. So based on your calculations, Monsieur Dagenet, the assumption, although we don't know for sure yet, is that for sure, the assumption is that this year will be 11%, likely next year 11%, because we're not coming to that original amount they wanted to cover their costs last year yet. So at least for the next 2 years, we're at 11%. And so what you're saying to us, Monsieur Godin, is if we use this 60 to soften the impact again this year, and next year use the 60 again, we are still accumulating that requirement. So by next year, for example, we would have to pay an extra $60,000 to offset what we didn't collect this year, correct? So just to make sure everyone's on that same page. So thoughts from members of council on that? Councillor Deacon?
I agree with the administration's recommendation on that point.
Okay. Conseiller Lalonde?
So if we're not to touch it, it'll raise the revised percentage up by what, 0.3%, or bring it back up to 3.89 or?
3.82.
And just remind me again what 3.82 translates into on an annualized basis out of the taxpayer's pocket. Is that how many hundreds of dollars is that in increased taxation?
Yeah,
We'll
we'll do the calculation.
1% was 160?
Sur 100,000.
Well, 8.4% was around 188, I think we've presented, so we'll
Okay.
Okay, as we're talking.
crunch
Yeah,
those numbers.
thanks.
It's probably half,
I'd
50%.
say that I would support, I would support as well, not touching the 60,000 then,
Councillor
this
Moore?
year.
I agree with that. That logic makes sense. I believe the 1% was $22.30, somewhere around there. So if we're talking 3.82, it's about $85, $86 per, for the 3.82. That's what I count, that's total.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but the difference between the 353, 382 is, I think, what Councillor Lalonde was trying to understand, the impact of this decision.
I think we should all do the mental math and make a guess and then see what Lucille comes up with. I'm
there a
gonna say,
prize? Is there a
I'm gonna say
prize?
it's $7 a month. Price is right.
The price is right for the year, I think, for the year. 7 for the year.
7 per month, $7 per
For
month.
the year, I think.
$7 for the year.
Yeah, for the year. Yeah.
For the OPP specifically.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
total, like
Oh.
3.8, whatever,
Okay.
7.
Sorry,
Monsieur
Mayor. The number that Councillor Laurent said was pretty good. We're looking at $85 increase
Total.
total.
Yeah, but again,
$85 increase.
the difference between 353 and 382%. That was the, it's about $7 we're guesstimating. Because if we keep the 120 in reserve and don't soften the OPP. Yeah, and so there is a muffin to whoever's closest. Okay, so I think we have council kind of general approval on that strategy. The 120,000 would stay in reserves related to safety and security to a one-time cost. Is there any capital required this year that we can offset and use that reserve rather than just keep it for the future? So we have some capital requirements that are there. Can we use that reserve there?
I think that when we bring a final report, we can have a look at our capital projects, and if there are some, are you saying to add, are there projects that could be added for that, or are you saying that if we have some public safety projects that could be funded by that instead of asset management, for example?
That's correct. So again, that would support our asset management strategy, but also this particular reserve had an intention, and this council has decided not to use it for that intention, so I would prefer to see it put back into capital requirements for that particular area or department.
And if we have that direction from council, without necessarily having to identify a project now, we
Yeah.
can do that for the final draft
Yeah.
and present those to council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deacon?
In putting that reserve back, my understanding was that it would be applied to future OPP increases. Am I misunderstanding that?
But this reserve is not being used for OPP increases right now.
This
This is what
year.
the council decided.
This year?
Yeah, but the reason we're not using it is because of the impact it has, like, down the road. And so if we hold on to it and not use it this year, but use it for next year when they go at 11%, there is no difference. We're keeping money in the bank that could be used to reduce the tax this year. And so I would not be in favor of leaving it just sitting there. Mr. Godin, maybe that's...
Merci, Monsieur Mayor, and just to respond to Councillor Deacon's comments, what I was proposing with that wasn't for future increases, because I think any future increase from OPP should be funded by a tax increase, because they're not going to be reduced in the future, right? So we have to have a sustainable funding mechanisms to cover those invoices. So what I was proposing was really for any capital, like one-time expenses, capital projects or studies or whatnot in that.
Councillor
field.
Deacon?
But we are leaving half of the value of that reserve for exactly that purpose. So why wouldn't we leave the entirety of the reserve?
No, the idea, taking the 120 and splitting it over 2 years was to soften the impact of those ongoing increases. But those are short-term pain relief, because in the end you have to, so $60,000 less this year, for example, if we used it as we had originally planned. Next year, we have to make up that 60 plus the next 11% that comes from taxation. So we're just delaying that increase in taxation. And so now by taking this 120 and moving it to somewhere where we can just invest in capital, we're actually improving our asset management strategy by that 120,000 rather than looking for another 120 for in asset management.
I
I know
see.
it's a small drop, but it's still a better use of that.
You want to
that
mobilize
money.
it this year
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the reflected.
Yeah, because
savings
no
down
matter
the
what,
road.
I think
see.
council is deciding here is that we don't want to use it to soften a blow that will just get added back up next year. And so if that's certainly my understanding from council here at this stage, but Does that make sense, Monsieur Godin?
That would be administration's recommendation, as you described it, yeah.
Okay.
And it's, just to be clear, it's the full value of that reserve
The
then and not the
120,
half?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Everyone okay in that direction? So we're sitting at 382. Okay. Any other aspects to this discussion? I know we have to go through the requests and so on, but in terms of increases to taxation for the levy for this year. Mr. Godin?
Merci, Mr. Manon. Unless council wants to debate
thought you were
if we go quicker instead of 10 years on the asset, if we go, if not, we can move on to the public requests.
Okay, so right now, this 3.82 is based on our 10-year plan for the asset management. We had presented a 12-year and a 15-year, and I think council is comfortable with the 10-year, unless anyone wants to throw some percentages more at it. No. And we also, in this particular budget on the user fees, have added a strategy for our wastewater reserve starting to fund future capital investments as well. So I think we've got a good base to move forward. Council members, any other changes you would like to see at this stage before we go through the request? Thank you, Council. Thank you very much, Richard, Monsieur Godin, sorry, and Monsieur Dagenet, and everyone on the team for all the work leading up to this point. Thank you. Let's move forward. All right. Zéro un? Zéro un? OK. Monsieur Savoie, tu m'arrêteras si jamais je suis pas quelque chose. Prendre 2 petites secondes, puis on va commencer ici. Okay, so as we just wait for Councillor Lauren to come back, I just wanted to kind of highlight if I do a bit of the math on the requests, I think it's important to note, and it's not surprising, that over half of the residents' submissions related to some sort of paving or resurfacing, and that's nothing new. This council and the previous council had already put a plan to try to reduce that gap and to increase funding, and this year we're up to 2.4 million, I believe, Monsieur Bourdon, in resurfacing costs, not to mention what's happening on Notre Dame. So the council has responded to that and putting a lot more resources towards it, but it is a challenge. We have, when it comes to resurfacing, we have a plan, a resurfacing plan, and we're following that plan. So it's not based on, oh, I'd like to do this, and so we do have that. So that's important as we go through that. So again, these requests, as we're going to go through them, for the majority are not an impact on operations, therefore not an impact on levy, but an impact on our asset management reserves. And so just to keep that in mind. So we'll start with, pardon, Monsieur Savoie, juste pour confirmer, quand on va regarder toutes ces demandes-là, celles qui ont été peut-être rajoutées ou incluses maintenant, c'est tout ça, c'est tout à jour? Oui? OK, merci. OK, alors on commence
Monsieur
numéro
Mayor.
1.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Sorry, just regarding a question, I did take note of a few requests, and just in speaking with council members, and that maybe aren't there, so I will raise
Just
a
add them
couple
at the
of them
end?
at the end.
Okay, thank you. And just correct me if I'm wrong, do we go through, we just read out all of them for the public, or what's the practice? I need a refresher on that.
Merci, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so typically we'll go through one by one just to put it on the table. If some of them are quick and we just move on, and some of them council might want to discuss and decide to add or remove, or
Okay.
just have an exchange with
All right.
admin.
So number 1, accessibility ramp to access 225 Industrial Street. That's a request that came in. That's related to public safety. It is not included. It's not included. The notes here is that it's not an accessible building, so accessible ramp will be, adds no value, but I'm not sure that that's, yeah. Councillor Deakin?
I just want to flag that the language used in the notes, I think, could be
Yeah,
interpreted
sensitized
as,
a bit, yeah.
yeah, if we can be a little bit more considerate. And if that note was made by a wheelchair user, I would of course retract that, but just to be really trying to make sure that we're putting lived experience first.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Deakin. I agree with you there. Any questions on this item, Councillor Deakin?
On that note, I do have a question if that building is a place where client services are offered directly in person?
Madame Bourdeau? Oh, okay. So 225 industrial, do we have residents that come to inquire about stuff? Is that a front of the, or a frontline desk there for residents?
Yes, they do come to the office for different permits and questions for the officer.
Okay, so wouldn't that not require us to have it accessible? Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet, or Madame Bourdeau?
I did verify, and since it hasn't had the major retrogrades to the entrance or anything of that type, it was not required under the Act. And we also have a sign at the entry. If people require accessibility, they can come to City Hall and we'll service them here. So the officers will meet them here.
Okay, Councillor Deakin.
I'd like to ask if this could be looked at this year, the accessibility of that building. And I understand that there's some office reorganization also being explored this year. And I would encourage that the accessibility committee play a role in being consulted and providing recommendation on how to make sure that client services are fully accessible.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That should be, so they're technically accessible if you're requiring a person to make plans ahead of time. But if we have a service that's a drop-in service where a resident can come in and meet with someone, that should be fully accessible. And so we would like to have that looked at a little closer. Councillor Deakin?
Just to add to that as well, this is about accessibility for employees as well as members of the public, looking into
Thank you.
hiring folks with
That's a good point.
disabilities as well.
That's a good point. Thank you. Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So we can definitely look at all those questions. Before Councillor Deakin's last comment, I was going to say that one of the options to consider would be that all client service from the department just be at the town hall, and we organize ourselves that way. But your point about employees as well is important, and we'll look at it.
Thank you. Item number 2. Oh, sorry, Councillor Armstrong, apologies.
Just following on from Councillor Deakin's comments, we have a long-term road rehabilitation, road maintenance strategy. Perhaps we should be looking into a long-term accessibility, capital accessibility, and when we do rehabilitation, office renovations, et cetera, on a building, we're not going to miss it if we can have that long-term plan.
Thank you, Councillor. Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Bourgon, we did have that in the past, did we not? Like an amount set aside every year for accessibility? I know we talked about it and then we referred to the committee part.
Merci, Mr. Mayor. I think you're referring to, there used to be a $25,000, but that was specific for sidewalks and those improvements. That hasn't been in the budget for a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Councillor Deakin and Councillor Armstrong's comments about accessibility and the need to have a plan are well taken, and we can look at what we can do.
Thank you. Item number 2. Suggests the sidewalk along Notre Dame, specifically from the traffic circle to Tim Hortons, be upgraded to include tactile walking surface indicators, and that the sidewalk surface be made flush with the roadway and all crossings to ensure full accessibility. There was a video included. I'm not sure if we want to show the video, or do we need to show the video? Monsieur Bourgon, Monsieur Godin?
Well, it's included in the budget.
It's included in the budget?
Part of our full revamp of Notre Dame, sidewalk, active transportation, accessibility, is included in the
So
project.
that'll be part of the full
So,
upgrade.
and that goes from where we started this year all the way to the roundabout near Embrun Ford.
Excellent, thank you very much. Questions, comments? All right, going to item number 3. Exercise equipment for Keith Boyd Park, Parks and Recreation, up to 60,000. There was a presentation that we had on this. Question, comments, Councillor Laurent?
Yeah, this is the item I spoke about yesterday. I'd like to ask council to have it included in the budget, but unfunded from asset management, and only funded if they come up with the money through other means. They said that they were going to start doing fundraising, maybe partnering with a social group, similar to other requests we've had in the past. But I'd like to have it in the budget as a project, so that when, if they do come with the money, they don't have to come back to council to get approval for that again.
Monsieur Dagenet, can you just confirm what is the impact? I know there's no financial impact at this stage, but what's the impact in putting that as included unfunded? Is that bind, and I'm saying Monsieur Dagenet, could be someone else, Monsieur Godin, but does that bind council to move ahead with whatever the amount is? No. Like, we have here an estimate of up to $60,000. At what point do we say, well, it was included in the budget, they raised $10,000, we have to do it? Like, how does that work? And I'm not sure who the best person is to answer that, but.
Well, the way, I'll give you how I see it, and then Monsieur Godin can, but for me, if it's on finance, then it's part of the budget. So if they do get the money to do it, then we'll be able to go ahead with it without coming back to council to a maximum of 60,000. But because it's on finance, we're not using any money from
So it
any
has-
of our reserves. So
So-
if they come back with 30, if they have 30,000 and they need 60, then we need to come to council and ask for the extra 30,000.
Okay.
Is that?
I'm comfortable with that request. I had Councillor Lalonde and then Councillor Deacon.
Yeah, I wouldn't support this suggestion. I respect Councillor Lauren's take on it, but I wouldn't be able to support it at this point for a number of reasons. I would prefer to see this reviewed under the Parks and Recreation Master Plan work that's being done, first of all, to really determine whether there is actually a need and what the usefulness of this sort of equipment might be. I spent quite a bit of time this last summer at the Jonathan Petrie Park. There's equipment of that same type over there that has been, I've seen it used very rarely. I've seen more so young kids trying to access that equipment in that park that really shouldn't be on it. I know this is a different kind of equipment, but I'm not convinced on the aspect of public input on this either from the residents of that area. We have to think about these pieces of equipment are worth about $5,000–6,000 a pop. And we have to think about the fact that having them outdoors, that means from about November to April, there's nobody really going to be able to use that equipment because of snow, unless township is prepared to clear a path to it and clear the snow off that equipment. But I've looked at that stuff before. I'm a big fitness fan and love looking at equipment in gyms, outside of gyms, in parks. I'm not convinced here of the need for this in that park over there, and I certainly haven't felt, other than a presentation from one individual, that it is really the wish or the strong desire of the people living in that area. So I wouldn't be able to support the idea of even putting it on this list and then seeing who comes up with money and what might be township's part in it. To the extent that I don't think that I could support any kind of amount of money going towards this concept. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin?
I appreciate those comments, and as well as Madame McCormick's coming to council with this request, and as well as what I understand community getting together and having discussions about the potential of this as well. It's always a positive to see community coming forward, looking to partner, bringing ideas directly. And we also did see that, as I understand, to quite a degree with the master plan engagement as well from, as Madame Guitard said yesterday, all ages, folks from all across our community engaging in that process in ways that were accessible to them. For this one, I'm wondering if we can continue to partner and leverage the knowledge and the interest that is in the community with the engagement and the data that we have that will be coming through the master plan. So not saying that we're against it without seeing what that master plan is telling us would be of great benefit in that park, as well as the energy that residents and community are also willing to invest for certain additions in structures to that park. So for me, it's more of a wait and see. And if putting this in the budget unfinanced eliminates the administration from being involved in determining ultimately what's recommended, then I would also be against it. But I'm wondering if it's possible to put in the budget unfinanced with the understanding that administration will be part of those discussions and bring the master planning process to the community for a recommendation to council down the road. Is that possible to do, or if putting that unfinanced in kind of a blank check, like whatever comes and we're automatically, and the reason why I ask this is, and for any members of the public that would be watching, you might be saying, well, we're paying for it. Why don't you give us, the leeway to lead here in the ways that we want to lead? That's wonderful. But anytime an asset is added, we're looking at asset management of that asset and dollars going towards that for years, decades to come. So it is a partnership ultimately, even if it is fully fundraised.
Thank you, Councillor Deakin. Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, so exactly what you just said. It while it would be the fundraising effort and the plan of the scope of the project came from the residents and this group, the actual administration of the project would still come from the township, right? We can't just let somebody put something into our parks. We are the ones that have to go out, get the quotes, get the tender, and put it through that whole process, just with the funding coming through that group. This was a group that did come to the Parks and Recreation Committee, did get a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Committee. That came to council, that council received previously, plus the group came at our public request meeting. So I think we made it pretty clear during our Parks and Rec meeting about the need for them to go find money for the project through other means, whether it's grants or partnering with a social group that could go get grants or fundraise. But that ultimately, there's no community build here, there's no individual build, it's a township-led project in the end. So we have full say on everything that goes in there.
Thank you, Councillor. Monsieur Godin, Madame Guitard. Oh, sorry, Councillor Armstrong. Apologies.
I'm not comfortable throwing this in now without seeing a final Parks and Rec master plan. On the other hand, do we have a mechanism for delaying public requests this year to the next budget, so they come back from previous years that council has decided to push ahead into to another year. Then we might be able to look at it after we've got the master plan and looking at it in next year's budget. The other comment that I want to make is if we do something for this upcoming fiscal year, remember that the decisions would probably be made or need to be made at the time when we're a lame duck council. So we'll have to have it well ensconced in the budget so that administration can make that decision to go ahead or not at the time.
So the process for delayed requests, Councillor Armstrong, is they come back next year and ask again. We've seen that, and that seems to be, unless I know we
Road paving.
we have some requests that come back every year. Monsieur Godin, is there, I mean, I wouldn't want to see a request from this year, next year, unless there is still a demand for that request. So, yeah, Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. As part of the process, when we're done here, we're going to be communicating with all these requesters to inform them if it was in the budget or not. And in this particular case, we could encourage to come back with a request next year, or to keep an eye on the master plan and to if it is identified as a need to make that request at that point in time. If right now we're talking about the 2026 budget, and I haven't heard any appetite to put any money towards the project itself. So that being the case, I don't think it's the 2026 budget process would be the place to add this project. If they do some fundraising and that they have the funds needed for this type of thing, they could always make a delegation to council to say, we've raised these funds for this project. Is council or is the township interested in installing this in the park? Again, from the feedback that we've been hearing, I don't think council would be comfortable doing that before the end of the master plan, but just to say, I think to answer Councillor Armstrong's question, we can communicate that to the demander to say, come back next year. And just my point of view, as far as including this or not, unfinanced or financed, is what I'm sharing with you. I don't think it would, based on the feedback that I've heard, I don't think it should be in the capital projects.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin?
Can you remind me when the master plan for Parks and Rec is expected to be delivered?
Madame Guital?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So we should definitely have a draft in February and probably the final approval in March.
Thank you. Follow-up?
Yeah, on that note, I just would like to say that I don't want it to be a no come back next year, but a no because there is this master planning process away, and let's have a meeting to look at what the requirement, like to actually look at a partnership and make sure that that data and those outcomes are included in that discussion. That's what I would like to see happen.
I mean, it's either no or yes. And so I think if I'm gauging the pulse of council, it's not putting it in the budget, whether it's funded or not, but to let the resident know that, or the group know that there is interest, but we're waiting pending the master plan's presentation. Is that fair with the rest of council? I know it's not exactly what we wanted, everyone, but members of council, thank you. All right. Item numéro 4A, new flooring on the pickleball court at the Dome, Parks and Recreation. Madame Guittard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Well, like I've mentioned yesterday, we're meeting a company next week to see if there would be something that we could do and how much it would cost and what kind of work it would involve. So I will probably be back to council sometime maybe before the end of the year if we see that there is a possibility that it can be repaired.
Okay, and just for council's benefit, and I think I mentioned that, there is like essentially the two of the four, or one of the three. There's three.
One of the three.
Yeah, one of the three, one side of the courts, like the ball just drops at about 60% of the space where the ball is supposed to go, and it just rolls. It doesn't bounce. So it's very frustrating. And so if we can just add that in the note here, that it's not included in the budget at this point, but a review is being done. Moving forward, replace the bridge on St. Pierre Road between Hybrid and Route 300 infrastructure, $1 million project, not currently included. Anything to add on that, Mr. Bourgon?
Well, I can say it's the first time that we receive a request to replace a bridge. That being said, this year we did the design for that structure to be ready for the near future. It will be expanded to accommodate for an active transportation lane. So we're waiting. We know there's going to be development to the north of that bridge. There's extension of water mains that need to happen. So by doing the design in 25, we're ready and we're trying to match with other capital project as well. So all that to say that it's still in good condition, but we're ready for when it lines up perfectly with other construction projects.
So just to clarify, there is no risk.
There's no risk
There
at this
is no
time.
risk,
We're
okay.
just,
We're gonna,
preventing or we're planning ahead
Thank you.
for future.
thank you. Councillor Lauren?
Just one correction, there has been a bridge request in the past, and that was the Wade Road Bridge near 400, and we ended up doing
True.
that a few years
Yeah.
back, so.
That's right, you're correct, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Lauren. Okay, item 4C, repave Centenaire Street between Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Augustin, and that's included in this year's budget. Item 5, grant to help maintain CJRO operations. We're seeking the same amount as previous years, $3,000, and that was included as well. 6A, from the Marionville Residents Committee, annual operating costs to ensure smooth operation of the organization for the year. $1,000 requested compared to $500 grant over the past 2 years. And it's included in the budget. As members of council, feel free to just stop me, just as I read down on these and that are included. Item 6B, community grants for 26, Carnival Committee, $1,000 plus fee, free rental of facilities. And so that's $1,000 value. It should be more than $1,000 value because it includes the rental of the facilities, right? Ils veulent $1,000 plus free rental of facilities. On a $1,000 dans le budget. Juste confirmer qu'on a dans le...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, we've always put only the monetary value, like the cash that we give them. So we give them $1,000 plus the in-kind.
Okay, so
So
those are both included and
They're
accounted
both
for.
included, yeah.
Merci. Item 6C, Citizens Committee, a brunch at the Cabane à Sucre, $1,000 free rental of facilities, and that's included as well. Citizens Committee in partnership with other community committees, $1,000 corn roast or community barbecue and free rental of facilities. That's included as well. Item 6E, Club de Bel Âge Christmas Supper, $1,000 plus free use of the community hall. That's $1,000. That's not included. Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. That is my mistake. I forgot that one.
It's
It is
included.
included. yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Item 6F, from the Marionville Community Group, Club de Bel Âge, free use of the community hall for the community meetings and community dinners organized by the Club de Bel Âge members. Normally one friendly dinner meeting per season, and that's included as well. 6G, Citizens Committee, free use of the community hall, committee meetings, normally 4 per year, and that's included as well. Moving to 6H. Citizens Committee, an increase in Green Martini Orchestra fees is anticipated for the Meet Me on Main Street Festival. We're requesting $600 compared to $500 in previous years to cover 50% of music fees plus free use of the community hall in case it rains and use of the main washroom facilities. It should be noted that municipality of North Dundas also contributes 50% to cover the cost of music, while the Citizens Committee and the City of Ottawa cover costs for children activities, face paintings, and others. That's $600. Is that not included?
Thank you, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, members of council. For the Parks and Recreation Department, only the rental of the hall if it rains is included. The $600 is from EcoDev, so EcoDev will have to answer this one.
Okay, Monsieur Dagenet?
Yeah, sorry, I missed that one. It is included.
Okay. Thank you. Moving to 6I, request to replace the existing message board with an electronic message board. I think we talked about this already. This is going to come from a fund at counties, should it move forward, and should we have participation from North Dundas and Ottawa. North Dundas has already committed. We're committed. We're just waiting for Ottawa to work on that. So at this stage, it's just not funded from anything here at council. Councillor Deakin, sorry.
Just a question on that. If that goes forward, because we have these message boards at the fire hall, here at town hall, other places, they're displaying township messaging. So that's part of the partnership that would have to happen as well? I mean, that seems
So
a
there
bit
would,
complicated.
yeah, that's a great question, and that was brought up in discussing this previously, and that's the idea of having three partners. It would have its own sign required bylaw and a bylaw or rules associated to the signage that goes there. So the signage that goes on that particular sign would be very specific to Marionville community, and any of the broader implications that impact residents, it would just have to be measured to make sense. They have a sign right now, so they already kind of practice some of that application. Councillor Lauren.
Since if it does go forward and it's electronic messaging board, whose server is it going to come from? The townships or North Dundas or Ottawa? And I say that just because of the breach we had with our message boards at the fire hall in Embrun.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah, so-
assuming that was resolved, but I just need to make sure whose server it's on so we don't have that issue.
Yeah, so that was resolved, and because it would still be, it would still need to get finalized, but it would be a township asset because it's on township property linked to the community center, which is a township asset. So
Okay.
we would be responsible for operating it. Okay, moving forward, and it is for council's purposes, it is a challenging one because there are three communities involved in that community, and they're still looking for some of that community feel that type of message board brings. So it does require a bit of leadership from Russell Township, because it's on our property, if you want, and our asset. But I think there is a way to get around that. So details forthcoming. So item 7, paving Bordeaux Crescent is included. I'm happy to report. That's exciting. And just for history perspective, is this the one that we were waiting? We were waiting for that one because of infrastructure aspects to it, Monsieur Bourgon?
Yes, that's correct. We were waiting on just findings on the storm sewer. Make sure
Okay.
that we don't need to redo the entirety of the storm system at
Yeah.
that location.
Yeah, perfect. So glad to hear that.
So a couple of years ago, we did some segment of that subdivision. So in this year's budget, we're proposing to complete the subdivision.
Fantastic. I know I got at least 2 or 3 calls on, for that particular one, so they'll be happy to see that move forward. Moving to item 8, resurfacing or paving of Grove Roads from Route 500 to Marionville Road. That's a $420,000 project, and that is not included. Conversion from gravel to asphalt is noted. Monsieur Bourgon?
Yes, exactly. It's not included. It's a change in level of service. So the request would be to change the existing gravel road to a paved road.
And at this stage, traffic doesn't justify it?
Traffic doesn't justify it, and it's not part of our, the road needs study either. So it would be to increase the level of service that we currently see at that segment.
Okay. Questions, comments? Councillor Deacon.
As that's not part of the paving plan and that study, how does the traffic and need on that road or any gravel road get studied? Like, with what frequency, what traffic numbers are we looking at when we consider or not to pave that?
Thank you, Councillor Deacon. Monsieur Bourgon?
Well, we redo our traffic counts approximately the same time as we do our road need study. So it
Okay.
was, and at that time, it doesn't trigger, there's a really low volume at that location, and even with all the other gravel roads.
But every road, when we redo a paving study, every road is reviewed for traffic increases, for conditions and so on, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Including gravel roads.
So the gravel roads, we still have our maintenance program to maintain those segments.
Councillor Lalonde?
I don't work in Jonathan's department, but I cycle those roads all the time, and although I'd like to see some other roads paved, I've been on those roads and the one on 500 a lot. There's very little traffic, and I have noted I think it's maybe once a year where it gets dragged just to bring it back into decent shape. Good enough for cycling anyway, but very low traffic on those two locations. So maybe one day, but not this day.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Item 9, Dundas Manor, funding request for the construction of new Dundas Manor. So they've been on a hunt for raising funds all across the county on this one, and I know other municipalities have given. At this stage, it's not a funded one. Mr. Smurl has come here a couple of times. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Lalonde.
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about this one for a while, and I think when I consider what we were looking at back with the Affordable Housing Committee, purpose-built housing, and the fact that we've started talking more about community wealth development, and the fact that all the other community partners around this project have contributed dollars. I'd like to support now on that basis and the fact that we have residents that have gone out there. Remember when Foyer Saint-Jacques closed, there were a number of residents that went all the way out to Hawkesbury. This is a lot closer to home, just down the street. I would certainly recommend at this point, with where we are today in our thinking about community wealth development and the fact that we have former residents with families here that are actually living in that facility, that we should, I would propose that we contribute $25,000 to that project. They had been telling us in their presentations that other communities were contributing up to $75,000, but over a 3-year term, sort of an installment program. I think for this upcoming 2026 budget, I would certainly support and would actually propose making a contribution of $25,000 for all the reasons I just mentioned.
Merci, Conseiller Lalonde. Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, I've sat here long enough to see that they've come back and back multiple times, and I think the year that I first got on council, I think we were in year 9 of 10 or year 4 of 5 of a donation request to the Winchester Hospital when they made an addition there back in 2000 timeframe, 2002 or something like that. Remind me the total amount they were asking for. I want to say it was $100,000 for the community. I think I remember something around that.
I think Mr. Smurl, I think the 100,000 was the mark, and they offered all kinds of different payment methods and making it as easy as possible, and or any amount is welcomed, I think is what they said.
So I would like to support that. My recommendation would be a $50,000 donation over 5 years, so $10,000 a year for 5 years.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Lalonde. I would be willing to support 25,000 donation and plan that in for 25,000 again for each of the next 2 years as well, to be looked at in the 2027 and 2028 budgets.
Okay, so just getting a feel for council, I've got a 25,000, I've got a 50,000, and I've got a 75,000, just different setup. Councillor Deacon?
Thank you. I'm glad that we're finally having this conversation, and I appreciate so much Bill and all the work that his committee is doing. I'm in agreement with Councillor Armstrong on this. I realize that the request was 100,000, and that's what was coming through from other neighboring municipalities. When I was looking at the numbers of Russell residents actually there is a number. It's not a substantial number. It's 5?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were pausing me. That's okay. So I wouldn't go for the full 100, but I like the idea of the 3-year 25,000. I do think that the project is coming along quite a bit, and that the sooner that we give them a substantial donation of 25 per year, I think that would set them on a better path than a longer term. So that I would like to support Councillor Armstrong's proposal.
So we have two 75s, we have a 50 and a 25. Any other additional comments on that? Councillor Lauren?
So the 25,000, Monsieur Godin, would come from
Reserves.
reserves or taxation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so there's two ways. We don't have a specific reserve identified for that. We could look into it. The reserve is an option. If council wants to make that $25,000 an available fund moving beyond that 3 years, we can increase taxation by 25,000, and that'll cover the 3 years. And if there's any other requests or anything coming out from economic community development, it could.
What percent does 25 represent?
0.12, around.
Okay. Councillor Lauren, follow-up?
So if we put it in, if we put in the budget in taxation, then after the 3-year time frame, that then opens up a $25,000 amount annually for something else, correct?
That's correct.
Then I recommend that would be the way we would fund it, in my opinion. Otherwise, if you're taking it from reserves, just take the 75,000 from reserves and pay it all in one shot, right? If you're taking it from reserve, but if you're gonna do it from taxation, then do it over 3 years,
So-
and then you open up an amount.
Monsieur Godin, just to confirm, if we agree to a 25 per year for 3 years from taxation, it has to get reapproved every year at council, is that correct?
Nope.
Yeah, it would be
Budget.
included in the budget.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't show up in the highlights, because we would just say we're keeping status quo unless council wants to reduce the budget by 25 after the 3 years.
Okay, so I feel we're moving into the 75 at a 25 per year out of taxation for 3 years. Conseiller Lalonde, this was not your original intention, so I just want to clarify that you're on the same page.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't propose it over a longer period of time is I didn't think that we could commit funds forward that way into other budgets. But if it's doable, yeah, the way it's been described, then I would certainly support that. 3 times 25.
Thank you. Councillor Deacon, any final comments on that approach? No? Okay, I think we have a direction from council here, and just to give you some feedback, Mr. Smurl sits with me on the South Nation Conservation Authority Board, and after he came last time, I mentioned that he had a good presentation, and he mentioned comparing to his previous year's presentation. He goes, well, I didn't do it, I hope I did better than the year before. And so he just, he's a good person doing good things, and I think this is a great decision. So I applaud council on that direction. Thank you. All right. Moving to item 10. Shuttle system for the recreation complex. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we are having a study for transportation. Monsieur Bourgon?
That's correct. And yesterday, my highlights, I forgot to mention to council, there's money set aside for 2026 to do a feasibility study for the transit. And that's one of the recommendations from the transportation master plan.
Yeah, but that's in the budget. No, wasn't there like an amount set aside in the budget?
And for
yeah.
budget 26.
Yeah, so
but
we
I
didn't speak to it, but it's
I
there,
forgot
yeah.
to
Yeah, I think
mention
we
the
all saw
highlight
that.
yesterday.
Yeah, you took such a short time to present, that's fine. So that will be addressed, as we look at that transportation within the community, obviously, that would be a key one that's being addressed. Councillor Deakin?
It was a huge lesson for me during this process around affordable housing to hear from Tim Welch in his report how much transit and transportation is linked with affordability, specifically affordable housing in our community. I wanted to ask, going forward, we get the feasibility study back, but we don't have, I'd like to understand, do we have a transit reserve? Do we have funds accumulating for any potential service that may be offered? I'd like to understand better what our starting point is, and as well with the development charges, because I don't believe that we are starting to collect DCs for that service either. And just, I'd really like to understand after the feasibility study, like what would be our starting point if recommendations did come back for a local service?
Thank you, Councillor Deakin. Monsieur Bourgon?
Just the top of my head like that, our starting point, 60,000 for the feasibility study.
Yeah, there is no money.
The DC, we're really limited under the Act to collect, which I believe we cannot even put in towards a DC study. Again, that's without validating with our consulting. Yeah, so that's where we're starting from.
Monsieur Godin, chose à rajouter?
Oui, merci, M. Maire. I can add on the DC portion. Mr. Bourgon is right. We can't collect for it. What I'm not sure if is, I think it is a service that's eligible for DCs. I'm not certain, but given that we don't have any transit service in the municipality, we can't use development charges to introduce a new service. So on that piece, I just wanted to clarify that point. And Mr. Bourgon's right. We don't have any budgets for transit right now.
We also have looked, I know I certainly had a meeting with the mayor of North Grenville, and we're supposed to have a meeting with the executive teams together to see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they're paying for it, and the benefits of it, and so on. So that's in the works as well. Anything to add on that, Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Maire. I could just mention, I'm not sure. It should be soon. I do have a meeting scheduled with the CEO, and we'll be getting our teams together afterwards, after our initial chat. So.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else on this item? So it is part of the study, although it's not included specifically for that, it is going to be getting looked at. Going to item 11, repaving Route 500 between St. Joseph and St. Albert Road, 355,000 not included. Monsieur Bourgon, comments on that?
That's correct, it's not included, and I forgot to double check where it stands in our paving plan, but I know it's in the short term to come back to council.
Okay, so it is in the plan and it's due.
Well,
Ish.
it
Due-ish.
shows up in the plan in the
Yeah.
upcoming years.
Okay, merci.
I forgot this morning to go back and validate the when.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Monsieur Bourgon, I believe it would be next year, because the one for Mario Cow Couple down, that one, that Route 500, I thought when we talked last, it was in 2027, which would make sense that the other one would be in 2027 because it's around the same area.
Yeah, true, Mr. Mayor, that's correct, Councillor Lorrain. The same request, same road segment.
Oh, the item 14? Yeah, I think you're correct on that. Okay, thank you. Moving to item 12, repairs on the boards and surface Marionville outdoor ring, Parks and Recreation, Madame Guittard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We are repairing the boards as of now. And we will be probably bringing back the resurfacing of the rink in budget 2027.
What would be the cost included in 2026 ballpark?
Just to repair the board, it's operational.
No, the surface, which is in terrible condition.
Oh, you're looking at a good amount of money.
I'm not sure what that means.
Well, I don't really want to mention a price, first of all, because it's late in the season, first of all, and then
It
depending
would
on,
be for next winter anyways,
I would
yeah.
say definitely 80.
But my issue is that particular rink space is also, I mean, there's posts in there for tennis / pickleball, which you can't use at all because it's so even though paving could happen next May, it would still benefit residents for pickleball and stuff like that, no?
Yeah, the only thing that we have to remember is we're not a baby just talking about paving. We might have to tear off everything and rebuild the base, with that becomes more costly. So if you're looking at what we were looking into Russell, we were over 100,000 in Russell, but you had more than one courts, you had 2 courts. So, but definitely I would say 80,000.
Okay, so definitely would like to see that next year. Hopefully they're asking for it again next year, but glad to see the boards move forward. Moving to item 13, resurfacing of Route 100, and that is included? Yeah, ok, inclus. C'est en français, inclus. OK, alors ça, il n'y a pas de problème. On avance pour numéro 14, paving St. Joseph Road, Route 400, heading south, and Route 500 from St. Joseph to St. Albert Road. And that is not included, but it's coming up.
Exactly, it's coming up for 2027.
OK. Merci. On s'en va à l'item 15. Request to install street lamps, Saint-Édouard, Saint-Saint, Marionville Road, Saint-Marie. It's not included. Anything to add, Monsieur Bourgon?
Some intersections, like the Sainte Marie Marionville Road, that's a county intersection, so it's not really the
Within our-
township. It doesn't fall within our purview, and we could review the other intersection to see if it meets the standards. If it does, that would be an operational adjustment.
So can we add that as a request to staff to review the validity of it?
Yeah, we can review.
Merci. Moving to item 16, request for safety padding and court containment netting for the pickleball courts located at Jonathan Pitt Park. Basketball playing surface, and that's operational. And so does that mean it's included, Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yeah, definitely. This was the first that we heard of from that, so.
Merci. Moving to item 17, Accessibility Advisory Committee, Ability Hive Projects Initiative, Visual Communication Boards, 36 by 46, alu panel board in full color, printed with UV inks to be in the $1,000 to $1,200 price range. Indoor signs that don't need protection from elements in and around the 500 and 750 range. This does not include mounting posts for outdoor operations, so that's under Parks and Recreation. Madame Guittard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's not included because it's already been ordered. We've been talking with this group since July, and in fact, it's in their ballpark right now. We're waiting for them to approve with their supplier, and we just touched base with them last week to see if they had an estimate time of when we would be getting the board. So that's all been done.
So just confirming that we are buying that from Ability
Hive.
Hive. And
That's
that
right.
was a recommendation from the Accessibility Advisory
Yes,
Committee.
That's right.
Okay, Councilor Lauren?
So essentially, that means it was included in 2025's budget, or it's operational?
It's
or-
operational.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item 18, from the Accessibility Advisory Committee, sensory support kits with average price of $100, township having approximately 10 of them to disperse into some of their public facing locations such as City Hall, Service Ontario Sports Dome. A new recreational facility could be really something progressive. These kits have been purchased for a few township already, including the city of Cambridge. Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This was not addressed for Parks and Rec, so
Oh, pardon. Monsieur Godin? Oui,
Merci,
c'est
monsieur.
vrai, excusez, j'étais habitué à poser la question. Monsieur Godin, pardon.
Oui, merci, Mr. Mayor. No, I just wanted to take this opportunity to just to mention, so we mentioned yesterday where we have a new budget line in the budget, in council's budget of $25,000 for community requests. So, and I realize we're still in the public request, but we're looking at a community request. So, like, all of these have not been included in the budget specifically, the requests that came in, but there is $25,000 available. So if council wants to discuss those and if they're in agreement with what's being proposed, that's a fund that could be used to move those forward.
So that $25,000 fund is directly related to committee requests.
Exactly.
And so that's what you're saying in that sense. And because the amount here is $1,000, it would be something that we could decide as a council if we want to support it.
That's correct.
Okay. Councillor Deakin?
I would support this going through that committee budget this year, given that there's a recommendation from the committee itself. And just to mention as well that there are these sensory kits in place at the 2 library branches.
Thank you, Councillor Deakin. Councillor Lauren?
I support that request as well.
Yeah, Councillor Deakin did mention support that this year. There's no money this year still, or is there? Yeah, it's in 26, yeah, so 26. For the 26 budget, yeah. Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to hear the support for that. I had, in that 5,000, I had sent in a breakdown of what that added up to, and I know, I'm glad to hear that Madame Guittard is already working with them on the signage, but in my breakdown in the email I have that I sent to Monsieur Dagenet, I don't think the signage amounted to $5,000 on its own per se. There was a number of other items listed in there, and maybe we can just sort that out later. It all told came out to about $5,000. And there's also the accessible Halloween and the Santa program as well that they were looking for some funding support on. And I mean, if that can be managed through the committee budget amount of 25, I could just reiterate those items for where it is they're looking for support from us. But all told, between those items 17 and 18, we're looking at about $6,000, but it wasn't just for signage, it was for about 3 or 4 activities in total.
But just to confirm that the 5,000 item is already ordered, as Madame Guittard said.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that it was it $5,000 worth of signage?
thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm just waiting for confirmation of the cost of the sign. So no, I'm not saying that it's $5,000, so I could, it's going to be a matter of seconds.
Yeah, no, and
Answer the
I think
council.
it's worth probably a good 1,000, maybe 2. I'm just saying that I have the detail of this, which I got in a bit late to staff. I only got that to Monsieur Dagenet a week ago or so because I was waiting on it from Kim Vincent himself. But I don't consider this to be much of an issue.
So item 17 refers to signs, and what you're asking for is something additional that's not on here. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's more in keeping with the list I have here that I shared with.
That's okay. So,
yeah.
so just to confirm, those items total less than $5,000 is what you're saying. Outside the signs, probably less than that.
Yeah, with
And
the
so-
other things I'm mentioning, it's covered by the item 17 and 18 in total, signage and
Okay.
others.
But ultimately, I think what Madame Guittard said is that the signage piece is already in operations for this year's budget, and 18 will be coming out of the committee's budget, and so I assume that additional funds, if they are required outside of specifically the signs, we can certainly absorb them in the
Yeah,
committee.
so
amounts.
that's
So-
great. That's how that can be handled.
All right,
And
thank
if I
you.
can just add, Mr. Mayor, it's gonna go in the operational again for this year, so we're not touching the 5,000.
Okay, merci. Councillor Deakin?
Just from a logistical perspective, I can certainly relate to the pressure to get requests from committee into the budget by, September 8th, when those requests usually come in. Most committees aren't meeting during the summer. It kind of puts you in a place as a chair in June to be encouraging those recommendations to come forward. So I think that's one of the beauties of setting up the $25,000 pot, is that it opens the opportunity for requests to be coming, and so long as the funds are there, to be considered by council. I just want to get clarity on this. So I don't think these have come to council as recommendations yet, but did the committee approve recommendations at their most recent meeting for these?
Monsieur Lalonde, Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, so these are all items that we discussed at a previous meeting. We had Kim Vincent with us to put this stuff out to the group. What we were doing at the time is then just trying to sort out whether he shouldn't have gone first to the parks, to the grants and contributions through that process. We were wondering whether it was our place to be clearing these applications ourselves as a middleman onto grants and contributions, or whether they couldn't have gone directly. So to your comment too of the amount of money being set aside, I think it clears up a lot of stuff for us that we can fast track it with a recommendation at our own committee. And the great news about Ability Hive is that they've been very dynamic the last couple of years. I know them outside of what we've been doing here. And I think the fact that we have an opportunity now to send it through the $25,000 sort of global amount assigned to committees is a more streamlined process than thinking that they'd have to apply each time for grants and contributions, when in fact it's a movement afoot in the community that sort of is working hand in glove to some extent with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, if that makes any sense.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin?
So do we still need a recommendation from the committee for these, or, if this is the new process and this is coming from the 25K pot?
If it's touching the 25K, when we have an amount, it comes to council for approval, correct? Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. We haven't really set a specific process yet for how to use the 25K, but I would expect that we would still receive recommendations from committees, and council would consider those and debate them before approving them. And that's what could lead to using some of that 25K.
Yeah.
And to Councillor Deacon's point earlier, I think that's the beauty of having that 25K there, is that we don't need to have that pressure of figuring out that detail at the budget process. The money is there. It's just having those discussions at regular council meetings to see if it's if they want to be allocated there.
C'est beau. Et puis, a certain amount of that request is already taken care of in 2025. So as it comes back officially to council in 26, once the budget is approved, I think, and we'll have the detail that's required and what's actually needed. So I'm comfortable with that process. I've got Councillor Lauren, then I'll get it back to you. Yep.
Yeah, I think anyone who chairs a committee going forward should have that included in their resolutions, and that the funds come from the council committee's reserve. That way there, when it comes to council can make that approval of that recommendation at the time. I think all these need to come through council.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that now, like Mr. Godin just said, and Councillor Deakin alluded to, is that you won't have to rush to get something in June so that it hits a budget. recommendation request or people coming in September asking for it. It's the fact that it can come at any council meeting throughout the year, as long as there's still money in the $25,000 reserve that could be accessed by those committees at that time, so.
Councillor Deakin?
Thank you. I just want to raise one more thing about these particular proposals. And I'm probably being overly cautious. These proposals, I think, will bring incredible value to the community. I proudly sit on the library board where we've purchased the sensory support kits for access to them at the library branches. And it's also supporting a local business. Ability Hive, to my understanding, is a private local business. So I just want to be clear, as I said, perhaps I'm being overly cautious. Are there any issues with moving forward, having a private local company pitching a purchase to a committee and that subsequently coming to council to purchase their products specifically?
Thank you, Councillor.
Having the utmost respect and belief that these are valuable additions to our community.
Thank you, Councillor Deakin. It's a thought that has crossed my mind as well. So maybe some input from staff on that. Mr. Godin.
Merci, Mr. Mayor. I would just say as long as we respect our procurement policies, and I think some low-value purchases, it does pass the
Litmus
the
test.
limits.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Some others maybe are more questionable and would have to maybe follow a process. But I think I don't see too much. I don't have too much of an issue with it, as long as we do follow our procurement process. And
Yeah.
if we see a recommendation that deviates from that, as administration, we can make sure to flag that for council when you're considering it.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin, follow up? That's good. Okay. And that concludes the residence request. Monsieur Savoie, Monsieur Godin?
Oui, Monsieur le maire, merci. Donc, j'ai mentionné plus tôt que j'avais pris en note quelques items que je pense que le conseil pourrait quand même discuter, même s'ils ne sont pas sur la liste. J'en ai un pour les public requests. Quand on a eu notre rencontre en septembre, un résident a fait une demande. La raison que ce n'est pas inclus dans la liste, c'est que ce n'est pas nécessairement une demande spécifique pour 2026, sauf que, étant donné qu'il a fait la demande avec le processus du budget 2026, je pense que ça vaut la peine qu'on en parle. C'était concernant des améliorations ou des recommandations du Transportation Master Plan aux intersections de, je pense que c'est Edie et Castor. Je vais laisser M. Bourgon en parler plus en détail. Mais c'est une demande de M. Hunt, je pense, à cette rencontre-là.
Merci. Pardon, M. Bourgon.
Merci, M. le maire. Donc, la demande faisait allusion au transport actif du côté nord de la rue Castor. So our transportation master plan state that it should be looked at in the midterm horizon, so around 2036. The request was to council was to entertain that improvement sooner, so in the short-term period. So I think that on our end, that's noted. It will be reviewed to be brought forward sooner than the 2036.
So it's a request that Monsieur Godin just brought forward, but it's just to publicly state it. Is that correct, Monsieur Godin?
Yeah, Mr. Hunt's request was that we prioritize these projects that were in the master plan.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily requesting that they be included in 2026, and they're not included, but we felt it was necessary to mention them through this process.
And Monsieur Bourgon, you're confirming that we are prioritizing them?
Yeah, so we'll, staff, we will review those recommendations now that the intersection's been shortly be completed. So yes, I think there's a merit to look at that improvement sooner.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Deakin?
So would we see as a council that those master plan recommendations coming back this year and to receive that recommendation and see how the master plan will be rolled out? I'm new here. How much longer do I get to say that?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Well, at this point, the council did receive the master plan as it is. We're in the short term, we're not planning over the next few months to bring back the transportation master plan. we want to focus more on the action plan for the water and sewer, so that's my focus. But over the next couple of years, we'll bring those recommendation or project through the budget discussion to council.
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. And having this exchange, too, I just want to inform council, this is one of the goals as well as when I was speaking to the new position in the CEO's office and the data performance framework. We do have a lot of plans and a lot of recommendations, and those are things that we track. We have a list of recommendations. We look at them when we prepare our budgets. When we present our budgets, we mention that they were in this plan or that plan. But I would like to see a more regular reporting back on all those recommendations and the status of them. That's where we don't necessarily have a consistent framework across the board where we have that automatically brought back to council. So that's one of the things I just wanted to highlight just for council's information, that we're, without overpromising anything, is something we'd like to strive towards to be able to do that.
Merci, and I appreciate that, Monsieur Godin. I agree, that's a good direction. Have we covered all the requests, Monsieur Dagenet?
Moi, ça serait juste pour discuter de la procédure. Cette année, on a envoyé une communication qu'on disait que la date limite pour recevoir les demandes du public était le 8. Mais sur notre site web, on n'avait pas identifié que c'était le 8, que c'était le deadline. On a juste dit qu'on acceptait les demandes le 8 en personne. Donc, c'est certain qu'on va modifier la communication qui va être écrite sur le site web l'année prochaine. Mais j'aimerais savoir, l'opinion du conseil, ça devrait être quand, cette date limite-là? Parce que là, cette année, c'est devenu, en plus, avec l'ajout du 25 000 pour les comités, c'est devenu un open season. Là, on recevait des demandes de partout jusqu'à la semaine dernière. Fait que ça a compliqué un peu le processus. Fait que j'aimerais savoir, ça devrait être quand la deadline pour les 3 demandes, que ce soit les demandes des résidents, la demande des comités, puis la demande du conseil.
C'est une bonne question, puis j'apprécie les problèmes opérationnels qui en découlent. Je pense que c'est important d'avoir un deadline. Par contre, la réalité, c'est que je ne voudrais pas bloquer une bonne demande parce qu'on a un deadline. Fait que si elle vient, moi, je serais confortable, puis j'ouvre ça au conseil, c'est qu'on a un deadline, mais si le deadline est passé, puis ça vient à un conseiller d'être capable de quand même passer l'information. Moi, d'après moi, ça assure qu'on est quand même ouvert d'esprit. C'est sûr que le plus que quelque chose tarde, le plus que il y a des chances que ça ne va pas être accepté parce que c'est vraiment dernière minute, on n'a pas assez d'informations, quoi que ce soit. Mais j'aimerais ça pas complètement fermer la porte aux résidents autant que possible. Fait que si on met une date deadline, puis après ça, si jamais un des conseillers reçoit une demande qui vaut la peine d'être mise, que le conseiller veut mettre de l'avant, je pense que c'est important de regarder ça comme ça. Membre du conseil, commentaire? Conseillère Deakin?
I agree. As much as I would like a hard and fast deadline, it is, I mean, even since yesterday, I have a new one to bring forward on behalf of, as a council member, just by information that happened and was exchanged yesterday. So, yeah, I'll just make that comment.
Any other comments on that, Councillor Lauren?
No, I don't disagree. I understand the challenges and of putting things together, and obviously if it doesn't make it into the first draft and something comes up, we can still add it into as a line item underneath into the discussion as late as we can. I as well have something I wanted to bring up, not necessarily for 2026, but something that needs to be discussed, I think, from a long-term strategy perspective. I'd like to get Mr. Bougon's comments on, so.
Merci. Conseillère Deakin?
I just have one more question on the public requests. On September 8th, Mr. Hunt did come to the mic and make that request, but I don't know that he also submitted it by email, you know, in the way that it was included in that package that came to us. So I just want to be clear on the process for having your public request included. Council makes calls for requests from the floor, and those are assumed to be included in the budget discussions, are they not?
Yeah, so when they come to council, when they're presented here in front of us, they are all included, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So Mr. Hunt's request,
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So I think for Mr. Hunt's request, I'm not sure I believe, like I said earlier, that the reason why it wasn't there is because there's no impact on the 2026 budget. But I do agree with Councillor Deacon's point that if it's requested throughout that process, that it should be on that list. So it's something that we can have a discussion over, like, as we debrief over the process. But the reason it wasn't there is because it was a question of looking at the priority of the project. It wasn't necessarily a request to put anything in the 2026 budget. So.
thank you. Monsieur Savoie, est-ce qu'on a couvert, on a couvert toutes les demandes qui ont été imprimées avec le package du budget? Oui, OK. Alors, je vais open the floor for any additional questions. I had Councillor Deakin, Councillor Lauren, and I have one as well. Councillor Deakin, you said you had one more request that came in this morning? Yeah, I think we've covered.
I have something as a
All right, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I just want to mention, there's also the committee request and the council request. I'm not sure if you were talking about just the public request. Or?
No, it was just, my bad. On est à quelle page? C'était section 9. Hein? 3. Yeah, why don't we do that? That's a great call. So, on va prendre un 10 minutes. On va prendre un 10 minutes. On revient à 11h05. Yeah, I thought that.
Sorry, I wasn't clear when I mentioned.
Yeah. OK, on recommence. On est rendu maintenant aux demandes reçues des comités. Alors, numéro 1, c'est comité consultatif sur l'accessibilité, recommandation AAC 2025-02. Ça, c'est pour recevoir 25 000 directement pour ce comité-là, d'après moi. Comme c'est là, si je regarde sur les notes, on a mis 25 000 ou on est dans l'attente qu'il y ait un 25 000 qui est pour tous les comités ensemble. Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose à rajouter là-dessus, M. Dagenet?
Oui, c'est ça. C'est exactement 25 000 pour tous les comités. Fait qu'on va revoir là, le document là, pour pas que, en regardant, on peut se penser que c'est tout le comité d'accessibilité qui reçoit le 25 000.
Oui, mais c'est clair que c'est pour tous nos
C'est
comités.
pour tout, oui.
Est-ce qu'il y a questions, commentaires, membres du conseil? Conseiller Lalonde?
Oui, c'est juste pour préciser que nous, quand même, que ça se discutait sur l'idée de 25 000, on avait par la suite éliminé ça pour plutôt un montant de 2 000 ou 2 500. Alors, tant qu'à moi, on n'avait pas besoin de le montrer, ce 25 000-là, compte tenu de l'analyse finale qui a été faite dans les dernières semaines.
Merci. Pour les prochains items jusqu'à numéro 6 ici, ce sont des recommandations des comités pour avoir accès à ces montants-là, mais on s'entend que ça serait accès aux 25 000 déjà. Est-ce qu'on peut conclure que les demandes, si approuvées par le Conseil ici en ce moment, vont être, will be allocated directly to those committees? Would that make sense from the $25,000? Essentially, these requests, are they coming forward as they would through the year? Is that make sense to you, Monsieur Dagenet?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this time, because it's a first, we use this process, but in the future, yeah, they'll just come in at any time during council. We'll be presenting a breakdown of where we're at with that budget, and then the council decides if they go forward with it or not.
Merci. Are you comfortable with that, members of council, in that direction? Thank you. OK, alors on s'en va à l'item 2, Comité sur la diversité, l'équité et l'inclusion communautaire. Lors de la réunion du 1er octobre, le comité a ajouté 1 000 $ à son budget conformément à la recommandation 8A de son ordre du jour, une initiative pour les femmes visant à organiser une journée internationale des femmes avec des conférenciers invités pour 1 000 $. Conseillère Deakin, voulez-vous rajouter des commentaires là-dessus?
Oui, je pense que je devrais ajouter qu'il y avait des échanges avec Mme Guittard concernant la location de la salle aussi, puis que c'est pas mentionné ici parce que, si j'ai bien compris, c'est possible pour un comité de demander directement à l'administration de réserver la salle aussi gratuitement. Alors, le 1 000 $, c'est vraiment pour dérouler le déroulement de l'événement plus la salle.
Merci. Question, commentaire. Question, quelque chose à rajouter, Mme Guittard? Non. Il y a quand même une valeur qui est rattachée à la location de la salle.
Merci, Monsieur le maire, membre du conseil. Oui, ça serait, si je ne me trompe pas, 359 $.
Puis ça irait à travers les...
Habituellement, quand c'est un comité municipal, on ne fait pas passer au travers
OK.
des community grants, là. C'est comme quand on avait la parade de Noël, etc.
OK. Apprécié pour la clarification. Merci beaucoup. Question, commentaire là-dessus. Membre du conseil, on est confortable sur le 1 000 $. Merci. On continue. Alors, item 3, le même comité. Recommandation que le conseil demande à la municipalité d'examiner pour élargir l'accessibilité bilingue des réunions du conseil. Il n'y a pas un montant qui est associé à cette demande-là. Ça serait plutôt une directive à les municipalités, mais ça ne serait pas dans les budget requests, M. Godin, ça?
Oui, merci, M. le maire. Non, c'est exactement ce que tu viens de dire. Donc, le point 3 et le point 4, dans le fond, on peut les retirer. Moi, mon intention et mon commentaire, c'est juste de dire que c'est pas les... on a reçu la directive du conseil pendant ces rencontres-là. Donc, on va regarder ces questions. Ça se peut que pour le point 3, par rapport à le bilinguisme pour la salle de conseil, il va y avoir des coûts définitivement si on veut implémenter les technologies, mais je pense, si j'ai bien compris, l'intention ou la direction qu'on avait eue, je pense que c'est la semaine dernière ou la semaine d'avant, là, c'était qu'on évalue, qu'on regarde à l'interne, voir c'est quoi les possibilités.
C'est ça.
Puis ça serait plus, probablement, si on veut investir dans une technologie, bien c'est quelque chose qui pourrait venir pour le prochain budget.
Oui, puis dans ce cas-là, je ne pense pas que ça serait au niveau des comités, ça serait vraiment opérationnel. Conseillère Deakin, anything to add?
That was my understanding as well, that we're not experts in hardware for translation, et cetera, in the room, so it was really differing, but just mentioning from the committee that it was an interest and a priority to be considered.
Formidable. Alors, merci. On s'en va à l'item 5 dans ce cas-là. Comité consultatif pour les adolescents, recommande que le conseil de la municipalité alloue un montant de 800 $ du budget du comité pour diverses dépenses liées à l'initiative proposée Notre vote, notre avenir pour l'année 2026. Alors ça, c'est pour encourager les jeunes à penser à la valeur, à l'importance de voter pour les élections municipales, de voter, de s'impliquer, de savoir qu'est-ce qui se passe. Madame Deakin, quelque chose à rajouter là-dessus?
Rien de plus sur ce que j'avais mentionné à la rencontre du conseil.
Merci.
Juste à dire, si je peux, encore, c'est 100% une initiative proposée par une jeune femme dans notre communauté. Je suis tellement ravie de voir un leadership comme tel des jeunes.
Formidable. Questions, commentaires, membres du conseil? Je pense que ça, c'est une très belle initiative et que le conseil la recommande. Alors, item numéro 6, Accessibilité Advisory Committee, formation certifiée pour les membres. Une formation certifiée est offerte aux membres du comité par l'entremise du programme professionnel Éducation for Accessibility Competence de l'Université de Carleton. Ce programme est adressé aux individus, aux professionnels, aux superviseurs, aux gestionnaires et aux équipes. Il vise à renforcer les connaissances et la confiance en matière d'accessibilité dans les milieux de travail et les contextes professionnels. Le coût de la certification est de 1 000 $ par participant. Alors, l'initiative est pour 2 participants. Madame, ça serait conseiller Lalonde? Oui. Pardon?
Oui, l'idée, c'est que ça serait pour 2 personnes. On croyait aussi que peut-être un membre du staff voudrait bien participer dans ce cours-là, mais je m'imagine que dans le budget de vos propres budgets de training, que ça pourrait se faire à travers un budget comme tel. Fait que nous, on identifie 2 personnes pour le moment avec ça.
Merci. Questions, commentaires, membres du conseil? Conseillère Deakin?
I think that if I'm reading this right, there is interest from accessibility committee members to return next term to be able to apply those skills. And I know that there are several members on that committee that have been there for, term over term. And I think that the long-term benefits of this would be very positive, hoping that they do remain involved.
Merci. Conseillère Deakin, conseiller Lalonde.
Oui, good point. En effet, on a des nouveaux membres aussi qui arrivent sur ce comité-là, qui sont très qualifiés, qui ont fait des contributions importantes depuis leur arrivée. Et ça serait mon espoir que sûrement quelques-uns parmi eux reviennent siéger sur ce comité-là dans la prochaine, in the next council session.
Merci. Alors, on est bon avec ça? OK. Alors, ça termine nos demandes des comités. Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le maire. No, so I just wanted to validate and confirm, so if I understood correctly, those 3 requests with the money value attached were accepted, so
That's correct.
we'll be including them in the updated budget. And I also did have one item to add, and it's in discussing with Councilor Deakin about a request from a committee that was discussed a few council meetings ago. about offering discounts to nonprofits for the rentals of our halls. We didn't include it in the budget request. We were treating it more as a direction from council and something to look into, but it could have, I don't know that it will, but it could have minor implications to the budget, so we're putting it on the table now if council does want to discuss. And I think Cindy might have a bit more information to share on that.
Madame Guittard, implication budgétaire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. At this point, it's hard to say how much financially the implication would be, because obviously we don't know how many requests we would get. Because I think at the time of the discussion with Councillor Deakin, it was to give a 20% discount to some nonprofit groups. So we don't know how many requests we will be getting, because that 20% discount would not be recuperated in any way for the department. As of what the community grants program, we don't, the revenue is still recuperated through the funds that are allocated in that program. So it is hard to say. I did do some research, if you want, for the year 2024 and 2025. So within those 2 years, we would have had 2 requests from 2 groups that might not have been eligible for the community grants, but if they would have asked the grant, I would have still brought it to council, because I would have just not recommended to council, and council would have the freedom to overrule my recommendation. Also, for the nonprofit groups that also did not ask through community programs, we had 8 requests, and they were mainly for meetings. So, and we do offer those community groups the chance to apply for a grant, but some of them sometimes will say, well, you know what, it's just for a meeting, we'll just pay our dues and that's it. They don't want to go through the grant request. So if I'm judging this, there would not be a major loss of revenues, but like I was talking with Councillor Deakin, if we make this very like a known fact to all the nonprofit groups, then maybe we will get some more requests, and then that's when the 20% will kick in, maybe in the loss of revenue. So it's very hard to say at this point.
So, Councillor Lauren?
The way I'm hearing the information leads me to believe that the adjustment would be in the user fee bylaw, adding a line for not-for-profit with a reduction of 20% in the user fee, and then it's done. Like, I think that's where we make the adjustment, and if there's a consequence in the budget, it'll be reduced revenue by 20% for those 8 requests, and we'll see that in the revenue side of the world down the road. But for impact on 2026 budget, there'd be none at this point, and we would just see what would happen going forward. But I think it's a user fee item. It's not a community grants or anything like that.
It would have an impact on forecasted revenues for 2026 for that amount, whatever that may be, but it would have an impact. So the other alternative there is to slightly bump up the rate, and therefore, as we give the discount, the offset is covered by the increased rate as well. As another option, just throwing it out there. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, as we don't really know what demand would have, I'm willing to put that in for 2026, see what the demand is. If we have a huge demand that is going to have a significant impact on the budget, then bring it back to council. But for the moment, just put it out there and see what happens. In reality, I don't think we're talking about a huge revenue loss to the township.
Can you clarify, without putting you on the spot, Madame Guittard, maybe Madame Bazinet could help, the revenue for hall rentals represents how much? Do we
Thank you,
have that?
Mr. Mayor. Thank you for putting me on the spot.
No, but I asked Madame Bezinev if she had that
But
information.
She would still have to go through 2 or 3 different budgets, because obviously we have halls
All the different
all
halls.
over. So that they're all in different budgets, so you're
Yeah.
talking about, conference room and
Yeah,
halls. And
yeah, that's
so
fair.
that's will implicate all those rooms.
Yeah, I understand that it's probably a small amount, but I think in good fiscal practice, we should probably have all the information before we make that
Mhm.
decision. I mean, I won't argue against it, but I think I would prefer to have all the information in front of me to make that decision. Other members of council on that? Councillor Armstrong?
Then in that case, when the next draft of the budget comes to council, just with the information, do you want to go that way or not? And we can delay that decision until the second draft shows up.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We can do that. Monsieur Godin, from a process perspective, ça a de l'allure, ça? Non? Monsieur Dagenet?
The next time we're presenting the budget, it's for approval.
Yeah.
So we don't, we want to present what's going to be approved.
Yeah, but I'm comfortable for us to
We're-
give a recommendation here, but underline that amount so that we understand it, that's all. And then council can make a final decision. Monsieur, Conseiller Lorrain, pardon me.
So if I'm not mistaken, hall rentals around 350, something like 359. So 359, if you take off 20%, it's $72. If you times that by the 10 requests that you would have had last year, we're talking $800, right? Impact to the budget for 2025, if it would have been that. So if we're talking $1,000 impact to the budget, I don't think that that's material. I think coming back to, I mean, you have the reduction when it comes back to council of about $1,000, and added to the user fee bylaw, that there's a 20% reduction for not-for-profits. And because you're bringing back a user fee bylaw with the adoption, correct?
Monsieur Dagenet?
Well, that's why I liked Councillor Armstrong's suggestion that we just go with the flow with this, and then if we see there's too many demands, then we'll come back to council next year. But I don't see this as being, it won't do it then
It's
in
not
our budget.
material, yeah, it's not material. Okay, I don't mind, yeah, Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Members of Council. So, I just like to add that most nonprofit groups, when they have major events, they do go through the grants program, because they want the hall completely free. They don't want to pay 80%. So the only other thing that we would maybe, and it's not known at this point, is how many new requests we will have, new requests for bookings that maybe before were not eligible under the grants program.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
I think I agree with you. I think it'll be interesting, maybe with that data person to be able to analyze that for us. But I think it sounds like council is pushing in that direction because it is not, and I agree with Councillor Lauren, the materiality of this decision is very minor. So I'm okay with it. Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. So I agree with what you just said, and from Madame Guittard's comments, the reality is the financial piece might actually be positive if it does attract more nonprofit groups renting
Yeah.
our room. So it's having it as a kind of pilot project or just trying it out for 26. We'll see if there is a major impact. We can come back to council, but I don't think we need to change our budget to be able to do this.
Merci, Councillor Lauren.
You just made a great point. I mean, if there is an increase in the amount of people requesting and they're paying the 80%, well, that's an increase of revenue of 80% of each one of those rentals that then get offset by that 20%. So from a revenue perspective and a budget impact, could actually be positive rather than negative. So, yeah, I think we just move forward with that.
Thank you. Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Maire. I just did have I want to ask a clarification because I think I heard 25% and I heard 20%, so I'm not sure what the actual request. We
We've
can
been-
always go back to the recommendation.
I think we've been talking with 20% at the table here. Councillor Deakin?
The recommendation, I believe, was 25%, looking at other comparable municipalities that do the same. 20% is fine with me too, though. It's
Thank
the
you.
gesture, it's the acknowledgement of the value of these groups in our community, and I thank council for their discussion and positive reception today.
Thank you. Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet, on est bon pour aller de cette direction-là? Merci. Merci, Madame Guittard, for the added information. Okay, moving to requests received from council. So item number 1, students from École secondaire catholique d'Embrun and staff propose improvements to the community ball field, a key gathering space for young families and sport enthusiasts. The project seeks some financial support for a covered players bench, a pavilion with picnic tables, and a water fountain with bottle filling stations to improve safety, comfort, encourage physical activity, and strengthen community participation. And I believe this one refers to le Parc Richelieu. Ouais. Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So there's are some improvements already planned for 2026. We will finish our line, our water line, build a box on top. We will look into having a water fountain, but will depend on the cost for that for 2026. If not, this will be reported to 2027. And then the dugouts were planned for 2027. The top rail was planned for 2026.
Okay, so again, this recommendation came from the high school students. And so moving any of these projects forward, is there a cost associated so we can see if we can do this or not?
It's all operational at this point, so there's no capital projects in there.
Well, so-
Except for the dugouts, but the dugouts are for 2027, so there's no value to be put in the budget for 2026.
We can't move them forward.
Not, the dugouts, like I said, are gonna happen in 2027. Everything else is in 2026. It's operational.
Tu l'as déjà en 2026
Oui.
pour l'abreuvoir
Yeah.
en 2026,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, I didn't understand that. You said you're bringing
I s-
water, but you didn't know what
The water's already there. We just have to finish the project with a box, and
so we are gonna have a water fountain there in 26.
very probably.
Yes or no? Come on,
I-
we're the politicians that are,
Well, I'm giving you a lot right now, so we will, like I said, we will look into, because this was not asked before, so we will look into the cost. If it's feasible, we'll do it in 2026. If it's really not feasible, we'll do it in 2027.
okay, Councillor Lauren?
The covered dugouts that we're talking about for 2027, what's the cost on that, do you know?
I have no, we don't have any cost right now, because that's in 2 years. But if I remember correctly, when we did the ones in Russell, we did save some money because it was an in-house project, but it's still a lot of money.
Proximate?
Honestly, I do not remember. I
'Cause
would really
I-
have to come back with that.
Because I agree with the mayor, I think we should move that into 2026 rather than 2027.
Okay. We don't have any costing done for that, I can tell you that, so.
But it is planned for 27, so, and the money will come for that from reserves? Asset management reserve,
management,
right?
yeah.
So we could ask for it, again, on timing, so for next summer to have them, if that's possible.
If that's council's wish.
Council? Councillor Deakin?
Sorry. Are we being asked to consider adding something that we have no costing for today?
No, it is coming in 2027, and we're just asking to move it up as the high school is using it already, and there was a concern from the high school.
But that we don't have costing for 27 or 26?
That's correct, but it is part of the plan, and it's as we have done for other ball fields. That's correct. Thoughts? I mean, we can ask that we move forward with it and get costing to come back, and then we can make a decision on that use of that reserve for 26.
Just on a matter of that procedure, if we have, when is the budget coming back for approval?
It's on November 10th.
November 10th, yeah.
Okay, and it wouldn't be at Monday night's
No, I don't
meeting
think
for us
that's fair.
to
I don't
take a
think
peek at?
that's a fair
Yeah.
request, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
no.
not requesting it necessarily, just trying to understand
No, but
how
I think,
this,
I think
how
it's,
this works when we don't have the costing
Yeah.
clear yet, and,
Monsieur
because
Godin,
that's not necessarily fair either to the public.
yeah, so we could request to find out costing, and then council can make a decision on it once we have costing. I mean, it's not going to impact the operational levy-related budget, right? So
Okay.
I'm comfortable moving it that way. Mr. Godin, does that make sense?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. I mean, we've added projects throughout the year in the past when it's from reserve. So if the council wants to request that we get costing for this, we can do it. and
Yeah, so
report.
I would like to see that with the water fountain, the dugouts, costing, and see if we can move that forward. And then it would have to come through council for approval, because it is not currently budgeted. Council members comfortable with that? Council Deacon?
I just want to make one additional comment on the water fountain aspect of this. Just as a general principle, I'm very favorable to having water and porta potties or washrooms available in our public parks. I just want to put that out there as a principle that I believe in.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Item 2, apologies. Stone sidewalks in the downtown core of Russell are in need of repairs. If you look at the brief, I believe we had pictures linked there. There are several areas that currently pose safety and accessibility concerns and require rehabilitation. Cost estimates for the necessary work are forthcoming. And this was requested by Conseiller Lalonde. So Conseiller Lalonde, did you care to speak to this first?
Yes, I would, and I hope everyone will indulge me. I'll probably need a couple minutes here, not too many minutes, but I'll need a few.
You got 3. 3 is good?
3's good, yeah, times 2. Just to give a little history on this, you know, and I look up at the board and I see that it comes on the responsibility of Public Works. I agree with that in part, but I think there's a shared jurisdiction here beyond just Public Works to start with. What I'm talking about is what I talked about in the fall of '23, for which some monies were allocated to do some work in 2024. In 2024, a fair amount of the work that needed to get done, and I was real happy to see that it got done, involved more of the concrete work, sidewalk repair and remediation, and that was a very good thing. There was only a certain amount of money, and it got used mostly in that area, which was fine by me. It ended up not addressing a number of the photos that I showed at the time, which had to do more so, or mostly, with the stone pave interlock stuff. So that's why they're back again. Nothing has changed there. In fact, it's gotten a little worse. Now, I've had discussions, and maybe we could even call it debates with infrastructure about the issue of, for me, which was pedestrian safety. I used a gentleman in our village area with his electric buggy to show that when they go off the sidewalk onto that interlock, it can be a real challenge. The argument being, well, yeah, but now they're off the sidewalk, so that's sort of out of the purview of infrastructure, and I respect that. The reality is, though, that people go on and off of that interlock at the intersections to cut corners, to cut across, and that's just the way it is. And so for me, it still does pose a pedestrian safety issue, even if it's not part of the main sidewalk structure per se. Why I say it's kind of beyond infrastructure is because there's a community improvement element to this. There's an economic development element to this, and there's a village history and heritage element to this. These all factor into the work that was done there in the first place back in 1993, which was arranged through a grant that township supported by a group of residents who wanted to create something exciting in the core that gave a nod to the history and heritage of the village, which was the brick factory, which is why bricks ended up between the sidewalk and the curb. there was a raison d'être to that, and it wasn't just an aesthetic per se, but actually a nod to the history of the village. And you all know that in recent times, especially last year, we had the Russell 125 initiative that brought some further attention and focus with the signage, which again, infrastructure helped with. The street blades were changed, new signs were put up on posts. So for all of those reasons, and I could go into more detail on each of them, but I'm talking about this project being really on 4 fronts: infrastructure, community improvement, economic development, history and heritage. Such that I'm back again for this. I have a slightly different take on it. I've met with some well-known residents involved in the 125. I pitched some ideas to them about where we could take out a fair amount of the interlock and replace it just with an edging, but pour the middle of it now instead in a colored concrete, so that we're still getting that look and feel of that browny, pinky, bricky treatment, but we're recognizing that people are moving back and forth across that area, and recognizing that in wintertime, some of the snow removal equipment can do some pretty significant damage. So we would actually see a reduction in the use of the interlock that's there now, but we would preserve the intersections in interlock. They're actually divided off to themselves already with a sort of a line demarcation between what I would call the main areas as opposed to the intersection areas. So all that being said, it looks to me, it seems to me, and I talked with a local landscaping company, that we're talking about $150,000 or so worth of work. There'll be money to be saved in pouring concrete and just relegating the brickwork itself to the intersections. There's a way to phase that. We know we're going to get traffic lights very possibly maybe this year, so that doing the intersection areas would probably be pointless, but it wouldn't prevent from doing all the main areas in between. There's several hundred feet between those on each side. I mean, that all has to be looked at in a proper tender setting, of course, to see who can pour concrete with pigment in it, which is done, I guess, often enough, and the interlock rehabilitation work that would have to be done. On the 4th piece, because I talk about history and heritage, I think that there should necessarily be some participation on the part of the village trust. This is not an infrastructure, as I said earlier, project per se. It's a shared jurisdiction, and the kind of work that they do and where they see the value for the village itself per se, I think fits very well into the idea of this thing. We would just need possibly our mayor to help champion those discussions at the highest level possible with the trust to have the best chance of succeeding. So that's it in a nutshell. I'd be happy to take more questions, but that's basically the thing in a nutshell. Thank you very much.
Merci, Conseiller Lalonde. A little bit more than 3 minutes, but we'll accept it. It was a good argument for it. I again just refer back to the brief that we received. There were some pretty poignant pictures there showing the with a 2x4 there across that shows the elevation differences and the challenges there. Obviously, we would need to look at that, but I think in concept, I support the idea of looking at improving that. I've ever since I've been around here, those bricks have been a challenge, and it's an expensive maintenance proposition to have the bricks the way they are now. I think putting in a cement overlay would certainly, in the long run, be an improvement in terms of maintenance costs and so on. I don't know if there's the option of grass, but then there's more maintenance on that aspect too. Anyways, my 2 cents on that. I have Councillor Deakin first.
I appreciate the vision being shared, and I just want to comment on the implication potentially of the village trust, wanting to be very respectful of the relationship between township and the trust and the mayor's role at that table. What I would love to see, and I wonder if it's possible, especially on the heritage side, is if it would be possible for the Russell District Historical Society to be engaged and respecting the process of the trust, that we're not influencing from township, but that it is community-driven if a request is made to the trust to participate. Am I making sense?
Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I know many of those members personally, that they also provide a bit of input here. This is of course, this is the first part of the presentation on this, and because I'm speaking very much on one of those components to the history and heritage, I did indeed consult with one in the group involved in the 125, but certainly to have a little bit of input and support, especially support. I think that would help with discussions with the trustees to know that it's not just council or former members of the 125, but that it's also shared by members of the heritage. So, and I would be quite happy to orchestrate or act as a facilitator there. I know them all well, if it be the will of the council to support it. What I failed to mention earlier as well is that in the process of doing this, I mean, we have tree stumps, trees that were cut out that were planned to be removed, and that work has to be done in the context of this project. And one other piece is, of course, the interest we've had over a number of years to see whether we couldn't acquire the corner lot. Because when you do this kind of work and you're talking about a heritage and history and attracting and economic development, attracting people to the core and making that an exciting place to go, you invariably start talking about that corner lot again. I know council made efforts years ago to try and purchase it. The cost or the price tag was quite far out of reach. These days, there's more talk about maybe just acquiring half of the amount of that property to put benches in and leave the other half with the garage to the original owner. It's again something that could be discussed. That would maybe be a phase 3, but right now I'm talking in terms of the shorter term of the value of the street project and getting some buy-in from maybe one or two other groups.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Armstrong, and then back to Councillor Deakin.
Yeah, just a comment. I'm assuming out of this discussion that this interlock does not invoke the minimum maintenance standards on sidewalks that are imposed by the province on municipalities. Just my first question.
Monsieur Bourgon?
That's correct. Those spaces does not fall within our municipal standard. It's outside the sidewalk. It's outside the road allowance.
So our responsibility is the sidewalk.
Exactly, sidewalk and the roadway, so they're not, doesn't fall within our the minimum standards.
Okay, that makes sense.
Follow-up?
That means that I think we have to look at getting a cooperative effort from as many agencies as possible. The Police Village of Russell, of course, is that trust is obviously one, and anybody else that may have contributed to the actual initial installation of that. Obviously, when we take on any piece of infrastructure that is donated in some way, it invokes long-term asset management to maintain that. And I don't know if we've actually ever put anything in for interlock bricks next to our sidewalks that are decorative. So maybe we'll have to have a look at that sometime in the future.
Do we have a reserve related to sidewalks and like it's part of our infrastructure reserve.
Yeah, that's correct. It's part of our, the full asset management for
Yeah.
curbs, sidewalk, et cetera.
Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, it's exciting, it's interesting, it doesn't fall under the minimum sidewalk standards, what have you, but it's there. And Township installed it, if I'm not mistaken. This goes back to 93, so we had Mayor Gaston Patnaud. I mean, if you look at the plaque that's over there, it lists all the names, both of administration and council members involved in that project. So it's, it falls, and that's why I mentioned this is, sort of a project that operates on 4 different levels. It doesn't fall within the sidewalks, but it's there, and it does require some maintenance and upkeep and attention, and it's just a question of, it wouldn't be the village trusts, doesn't fall within their purview to manage or oversee that either. It really is our township. There's some curbing that has to be addressed in there as well that has broken off and fallen into the street. So, but I see it as an exciting opportunity for renewed collaboration.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie.
Yeah, I think similar to the project above, we send direction to staff to go and price it out and figure out what that option is. It's got to come back to council for approval outside of the budget because it's going to be asset management funded, and with recommendations at that point that I would assume is to make an application to the Police Village of Russell trustees as part of that project. So that's how I see. I'm in favor.
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. And merci à tout le monde pour les commentaires puis la proposition, Monsieur Lalonde. I agree with Councillor Lauren's comments. On my end, just looking at this, and it sounds like a great project. Well, for the budget side, first of all, we don't have the costing, so I agree with Councillor Lauren. We have to come back with that. And on the outside of the costing side, just the resources and what that all looks like and what it entails as far as a workload for different departments. Like you mentioned, there's different departments that have to be involved in here. So I'd like to have a discussion with the team so we can come back to council with a more complete report. How does this impact our business plans? We haven't presented our business plans for 2026 yet. So yeah, I think it's a great project, and one that we would need a better understanding of the resources needed to deliver it to be able to propose something complete to council.
So I would, so thank you very much, Monsieur Godin. So we all agree that we get some sort of base costing figured out. I think we do have an idea coming from Conseiller Lalonde, but just to get an official estimate coming back to council, I would, with that estimate, have no issue going and speaking to the police village about it. Furthermore, I would, provided council's support, obviously, I would request access to some of the mayor funds that are at counties, and I could probably go and get, Monsieur Dagenet will have to check, confirm that with me, but I can probably go get upwards of $30,000-$40,000 towards that project. And so it could technically be funded if it's in the scope that Conseiller Lalonde was saying. And I think in the long run, I think we could all agree that it would still provide the look, but provide a lot easier maintenance for future generations with that purpose. Monsieur Bourgon?
I would like to add that Councillor Lalonde did touch on the revamp of both intersection in the core. I would strongly recommend that we looked into the rest, but everything gets done at the same time. So therefore, nothing in 26. We just plan accordingly, and it gets included with the improvement of both intersections.
Yeah, so you plan to do it in the intersections with, you're talking about adding the lights and so on, so that's in 27 for the counties, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it was originally 26, but it's now 27. Councillor Deakin, then Conseiller Lalonde.
Yeah, just 2 things on this, and think the mayor was kind of going in that direction, is that matching funds on this one is really important to me. We have several villages in our township, and this is a special investment that I would like to see be financed through a matching scenario with community, from that village specifically. And it sounds like some trees had been removed. If those could be replaced, that would be wonderful too, to have some nice shade. We know the value that trees and shade brings to walkability, speeding, reducing speeding on main drags as well. So just throwing that in there, my 2 cents.
So I agree, Monsieur Bourgon, in terms of timing, to do it all at the same time. That makes sense. It would be good if we can get a ballpark idea of what that would be worth. My only caveat in terms of the mayor's fund at the counties, it disappears after this term, and so then therefore it restarts again afterwards. So I'm just putting that out there, and so if there is a study that could be put towards it or something like that, they could possibly pay for that. I'm not sure if that would be required a study, but in any case, I think there is a will of council to explore the project with some timeline requirements that make sense from the intersections perspective. And I'm good with that. I have Conseiller Lalonde. Final comments?
Yeah, I don't entirely disagree with the idea of maybe doing the whole project at the same time. There are two very distinct pieces to it that also could be handled separately, but I guess in terms of economy, having them all there, doing all of the work at once is a cheaper route to follow. I just want to, when I teed this stuff up in October 2023 and some of the work was done in 24, I had heard that we would be careful with the corners because the lights were coming in 2025 and they didn't come. And are we fairly certain now that they are coming in 2026? Is that a lock at this point, or is that still un peu flou, ou juste pour avoir cette précision-là?
Monsieur, avant que je vous passe la parole, Monsieur Bourgon. So the EDCA store took longer than expected, so it kind of pushes everything back, but it's part of the county's projects, and it's listed as projects as part of the county. So it's happening, but Monsieur Bourgon, yeah.
From latest discussion, the design would happen in 26 for construction in 27.
Yeah. It's the Castor one was pushed back as well because of that timing, and that is the reality of working with counties and other issues that come up. So, any other comments on this item? I think we have direction for staff. Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Bourgon, on est confortable avec la direction?
Oui, on va pouvoir revenir avec plus d'infos.
Conseiller Lalonde? No? Okay. Okay. There was one other one for La Palme. I have one, and I think there's a couple more. So, Monsieur Bourgon, we are where the new library in Embrun is coming, is at the corner of La Palme and Notre-Dame. La Palme is a small dead end that has been neglected in terms of roads for a long time, and not neglected, but it doesn't get a lot of traffic, but it's in terrible shape. And we are redoing part of it as part of the library, like the facade of the library all the way up to the end of the library will be done. And so the ask was, could we consider adding the rest of the piece? So, Monsieur Bourgon, did you have a chance to look at distance there?
Bien sûr, merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, une petite correction. On doit refaire une section puisqu'on refait les égouts pluviales qui fait partie du système des égouts de la rue Notre-Dame. Donc, oui, effectivement, ça fait la même distance que du terrain
pour la bibliothèque.
Que la bibliothèque va être locataire là, dans le nouvel édifice. Pour le restant de la rue, c'est environ 50 000 $ pour faire le pavage complet de la longueur.
On parle de combien en distance sur cette rue-là?
120 mètres.
120 mètres. Fait qu'on c'est pas beaucoup, puis ça compléterait la rue. Sauf que je pense que quand je vous ai fait part de cette information-là, vous m'avez dit qu'il y a éventuellement, possiblement, des plans pour derrière, là, pour du développement.
On sait qu'éventuellement, ce terrain-là, au bout de la rue de la PAM, va être développé en une subdivision de haute densité. On n'a pas de plan, donc c'était une des raisons pour laquelle ce chemin-là n'a jamais été vraiment exploré davantage.
Mhm.
Mais à ce jour, on n'a toujours pas de...
Il n'y a pas de plan.
Il n'y a pas de plan, il n'y a aucun... il n'y a rien, dans le fond, des propriétaires là, qui a été mis de l'avant à cet
OK.
effet.
Fait que moi, je proposerais qu'on aille de l'avant, qu'on fait ce petit bout-là, parce qu'on n'a rien qui s'en vient à ce coin-là. Question, commentaire, membre du conseil, conseiller Lauren, puis conseillère Deakin après.
I'm fine with it.
Conseillère Deakin?
La panne faisait partie de l'étude de pavage, n'est-ce pas? Like, when we say there's no plan, it does appear
Oui.
somewhere.
Oui, ben oui, peut-être j'ai pas été clair, conseillère Deakin. It is on there. It is showing that it's in terrible condition, but because it's a dead end, there's very little traffic, that it's not considered as a priority right now. Monsieur Bourgon, chose à rajouter
Non, en
là-dessus.
résumé,
C'est ça.
c'est
Puis parce qu'on fait déjà la moitié, ou dans ce coin-là, why not do all of it?
I agree. It's not a huge amount of funds. I just want to understand the longer-term strategy for it as well. Is this adding a layer, or is this a full redo of the street? And because I'm wondering if down the road, if there is a subdivision put in there, would there be funds coming back for a full redo, for example? Just wanting to understand what the reconstruction would look like, or
Sure. Monsieur
the
Bourgon?
treatment.
À ce moment-ci, on enlèverait le pavé existant, puis on mettrait 2 couches de pavé pour respecter nos standards qu'on fait un peu partout.
Merci.
Merci.
Autre question là-dessus? So, in agreement? Members of council on this side, yes? Oui, oui, merci. Thank you. Councilor Lauren?
So I've had a few people ask me this, especially over the last year now, and I don't know if we've ever looked at it or if we plan to look at it down the road, but the curve at North Russell and Burton Road going towards Ottawa, that curve, we paved that road, North Russell straight to Burton a few years back at the request of council back in the day. We paved both of the curve and we've paved Burton Road last year, North Russell the year before. That is now a speedway. And there is a significant amount of people that blow right through that stop sign going west on Burton Road to get in front of vehicles that are making the curve, as well as vehicles coming east that all of a sudden have to turn left to stay onto Burton Road. You got cars coming around the curve. There's almost like 3 lanes there, which is very dangerous from an accident perspective, head-on collision type of scenarios. We've seen on the Metcalf side that Victoria Road was redone with, I think, Cartwright Road, where they made it just a straight L versus the curve, and having the 2 side pieces. Has that been considered in that area? And if not, is that something that should be considered from a safety perspective?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So I can even add that Ottawa did the same at the end of Route 400. So when we paved Burton last year, I did inquire to Ottawa to do those changes to both curves, since they did that in 2 locations nearby. They told me no, so I can re-inquire again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and great point, Councilor Lauren. Any other requests? Councilor Deakin?
Just following up from a discussion that we had yesterday regarding the wind down of the Embrun Neighborhood Watch. Just in a practical operational consideration, I believe there's signage in Pico Park that mentions the Embrun Watch, so just making sure that that signage would be removed. But I wanted to ask for $6,000 to be included in the budget. We were talking about continuing with the spirit of public safety, community care that Embrun Watch was doing with a $20,000 allocation annually. I did receive quite a bit of. I found the original post regarding a reinvigoration, relaunch of the Block Parent Program, and noticing that there are hundreds of individuals interested in becoming a Block Parent participant. For those who aren't 100% familiar with the program, it is the Block parents would go through a vulnerable sector check, thank you, and be given signage to put in the windows to indicate to children, but also any passerby that's in distress, that they can approach that house, that there will be somebody there who's willing to receive them and support them in whatever difficult situation, be it a lost child, medical distress, if there's a situation where someone's being followed, for example. Stressing, of course, that this is not meant to replace the 911 and emergency services, but it's about community care and more direct response and support from community. So the $6,000 would be to support that relaunch, supporting payment for the signage, other materials, promotional materials to relaunch that program. And if I can add as well, there is a bit of an operational implication whereby the program benefits from education or socialization about the program in the schools. I heard yesterday that Madame Bourdeaux's team is already planning this year to visit the schools and discuss safety with children. If this program were to be relaunched, it could certainly support spreading the word to have staff speaking to that program as well if it is supported by council.
Thank you, Councillor. Just a clarification, so that to run that project on an annual basis, do you need a board of volunteers?
It's entirely volunteer run. There is someone already from the community planning to do this. It would be a matter of supporting that initiative taken by volunteers, and it would be a one-time ask.
The 6,000 a one-time ask?
Yes.
Not an annual?
No.
Okay.
No, it would be for material. You might have a return to council down the road if they run out of signage, et cetera. But it's really to help them get started, and it's above and beyond. I mean, this group did not come to council. It's an above and beyond offering. But like I said, I think one that honors the spirit and the value that the Embrun Watch was doing for the community.
I have no issue whatsoever to support as long as that 6,000 is allocated using the proper processes as we give to any organization, and that could easily come from our extra 120,000. Monsieur Godin, is that accurate? You saw that coming, or?
Oui, bien sûr.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate to take that fund
Yeah.
for that.
From the 120,000 that's in that reserve, and especially it's a one-time, that falls perfectly with that. I mean, the rest of it is going back to the rest of the reserves, but taking 6 from that.
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. So yeah, I think the rest, we're going to be looking at the capital budget to see if there are some public safety projects that could be funded from there.
Okay.
And yeah, definitely we can add that $6,000 in the operational budget and fund it from that reserve.
Fantastic. And Madame Bourdeaux, from an operations perspective, the visits to schools and everything else is accurate? That's already in your plan?
Yes, the intent is to reintroduce the school program.
Okay.
So it would be part of that school program.
Excellent. Perfect.
I
Good.
just want to
Yeah.
add that the sign in Pico Park had been removed some time ago.
Okay.
Okay. Parfait. Follow-up, Conseillère Digan?
Just got an update from the resident who was looking to relaunch this, and she had mentioned that it would be helpful to have support in principle from the local police detachment or through the police board, some sort of OPP support. And she mentions having municipal support would also be helpful. So I'm understanding that might be confirmed as well.
Madame Bourdeaux, si on peut juste rajouter ça sur l'ordre du jour pour le upcoming Police Service Board meeting, juste pour voir comment ça marcherait, à moins que vous ayez plus d'informations déjà sur place.
I know that OPP had mentioned that they were also looking into reestablishing the
Yeah.
block parent. So we did contact them yesterday after the meeting.
So there is initial support, and through the Police Service Board, we can, and with Madame Bordeaux, we can certainly operationalize that with our detachment here. Councillor Deakin?
Just one question on that. Would this sort of ask fall into the police board budget itself? Or is it more appropriate to
No.
go through the OPP
It's-
public safety?
It's a one-time amount here. It's a one-time amount right now. I think we have the funds, and those funds come from amounts that were technically going to the OPP, so I think we're okay with that. I'm comfortable with that. Madame Bordeaux?
If we were to put the funds in the Police Services Board budget, we would have to speak to other municipalities, seeing if they
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah, that's an
Also
excellent point as well, because that's a shared board. Okay. All right, that was easy. Any other last-minute requests? Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, this one's way off the agenda, but and maybe just a clarification through Monsieur Bourgon. You know, the last couple of years, and I've seen stuff go by this winter as well about the idea of clearing the pathways from subdivisions like the one that Councillor Lauren lives in onto the main nature trail. Is that still a thing, or it had been decided that we didn't have that, we wouldn't be doing that? If I could just get a clarification on that, whether that's still a thing or it's not a thing anymore.
Monsieur Bourgon?
In the past, council took position that we are only removing the snowbank at
To
the
the-
street, and
So that it's not piled in front of
it's
the
not piled,
entrance,
and we're not clearing the
path
the
itself.
path itself. It's just the same aspect of the entire nature trail. That's how it stands for now.
Yeah, that's where we were at. Any other comments, questions?
Not on that topic, but Councillor Lalonde did ask or inquire about Church Street yesterday. I've looked it up, and it's due for 2028 at the
Okay.
cost of $385,000.
Merci. Merci. Okay, any other requests? Page blanche, fini? OK, merci beaucoup. Alors, Monsieur Dagenet.
C'est une autre demande là, pour connaître votre opinion sur... on a partagé le budget binder vendredi. Puis je passais au travers, puis je trouve que dans la section des projets capitaux, c'est très répétitif. On les présente en entier. Il y a une version all. Après ça, il y a la version environnement qui est le detailed. Après ça, il y a la version environnement qui est summary. Puis après ça, on va dans la version générale qui est le detail. Puis là, il y a encore summary. Ça fait beaucoup de documents. Est-ce qu'on devrait continuer à tout vous fournir ça, ou juste le all, que tous les projets dedans seraient suffisants?
Moi, si je peux parler pour moi-même, le hall, c'est suffisant. Puis du moment que c'est imprimé à un font qui est lisible, je suis content avec ça. Conseillère Deakin?
Moi, j'apprécie les détails. Often there's more context there that I do find beneficial. I think in terms of printing, it takes up a full page, and usually it's not more than a third of the page, so it could be... Anyways, I like the detail. Just say that.
Any other comments on that? Preferences or otherwise? Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I too like the detail. It allows me to look into depth in some of the ones that I'm more interested in. Some of them are obvious, but yeah, the detail is good.
Merci. Oui, Monsieur Godin. Un autre request?
Non, juste pour faire suite à cette discussion-là. Je pense que quand même, comme M. Dagenet a mentionné, il y a le détail qui est plus large, puis il y a le sommaire qui est moins large. Lui qui est moins large, c'est pour, comme tu disais, pour quand c'est imprimé. Sauf qu'on a aussi tous les projets, puis je pense que ça se répète, divisé par qu'est-ce qui est taxation versus qu'est-ce qui n'est pas taxation. Fait que peut-être qu'on pourrait quand même éliminer ça, à moins que vous nous dites que vous voulez garder cette distinction.
Du moment qu'on a je pense que ce que le conseil demande, le détail au niveau de la one page per project detail, is that the ones you're referring to? Councillor Armstrong, the one page per detail? I think as long as those are still there, and then like a list, I think I'm good with that.
Okay, so we'll supply the capital project summary of all the projects, and we'll also add the capital project, we call it the consolidated, and it's, every project is has his own page.
C'est ça, c'est ça.
And you can see if it's a multi-year project or 1 year, and get all that information. So that's good.
Yeah, that's great. And if I look at the table here, I know that 3 of us have full binders and 2 are probably electronic. I've gone back and forth. This year is the first time I've used the binder less than ever before, because it was a lot easier to get electronically, but I'm not sure we're willing to move to removing that. But we were given the option at the beginning, right, of full, which is good, I think. Councillor Lauren?
I would say for me anyway, what I would appreciate going forward is I like the electronic version, and having maybe a small binder with just the budget brief in it. That way there I have everything on the electronic, and I used a lot of the budget brief, making my
I think
notes
the
on the
brief,
budget
yeah.
brief itself, but had the backup information of the online version, so. That's what I used this year. I thought it was very well laid out in the
yeah.
budget brief, and it was very easy to make comments on my pages, so.
I concur with that. That makes sense. Anything else from staff? So, Monsieur Dagenet with a straight face, where are we at here? Just so we're all on the same page before we leave?
We're at 394.
Thank you. Members of council, everyone's on the same page? All right, thank you very much. Anything else, Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet, before we conclude?
Merci, Mr. Marnon. I think from our end, as far as the presentation of the budget and the discussions, we've checked every box. I think we're ready to go.
Thank you very much. I would like to take the final seconds here just to thank council for their openness, their preparation to make sure that this is a smooth process. I appreciate everyone's point of view. I think we're able to come to a good end product here. We'll all vote on it when it is presented on the 10th. I appreciate, again, all the insight. And from a staff perspective, Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet, toute l'équipe, toutes vos équipes derrière vous, un gros merci pour la préparation, les idées, the thinking outside the box to make sure that we're looking at it from both a practical administration perspective, from a proper financial long-term sustainability perspective, and from the residents' perspective. I think we're able to accomplish a really good balance in those 3 perspectives. So and with full transparency. So I'm very, very proud of that, and thank you so much for helping us achieve that. Councillor Lalonde.
Yeah, I usually do this by email after, but I'll do it today. I want to thank everybody as well. I'm not an expert in finances, but the brief, as mentioned by Councillor Lauren, easy for me to get through. And Lucille, who hardly spoke, I mean, again, as to the mayor's comments, the people behind the scenes, I'm grateful for the work. Grateful for the mayor, too, for the flow of the meeting and the pacing and getting us to where we needed to go. I'm grateful for that too, so thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. You can take as long as you want when you start talking like that. I'm just kidding. All kidding aside, okay, so we'll move to item number 6. Règlement de confirmation, que le règlement 2025, on est au bon, 126, c'est ça? Ouais, je regarde c'est la page d'ailleurs. That bylaw 2025-127 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council and the corporation of the Township of Russell and its special council meeting held on October 24th be read a first, second, and third time and passed. And this so be moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call for the vote. All in favor and passed. Thank you, Council. Item number 7, our next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, October 27th, 2025. We are adjourned at 12:20. What? We're good? Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you on Monday.